Recording in progress.
All right. That's right. Call to order the meeting of the Common Council for Tuesday, December 16th. Clerk?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. You have 12 members in the room and 12 members in Civic Clerk.
All right. Thank you, Clerk. Now please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for an invocation offered by Alderman Morgan.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman
And
Morgan.
sit if you want. I found this one thanks to Alder Hutchison for reminding me that it was my turn. I felt that this has a little bit to show us the reason for the season. Jesus, you were born in a little town. You grew up under the authority of local leaders and officials who managed the majority of your daily life. We lift up our local leaders today. We pray for our mayors, city councils, county commissioners, police chiefs, judges, and all who serve our local communities. Strengthen them in wisdom and grace for the heavy burdens they carry. May they manage your teams and projects with love. Keep your hearts pure and their eyes turned toward their face as they work in the best interest of the people they are called to serve. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Alder. And that's just where the calendar fell. We didn't even intentionally set things up for you to do the holiday meeting. Next, we'll move along to approval of the minutes. Motion to approve made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Stevens. Any changes there? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. Approval of the agenda. Motion to approve made by Alder Presley and seconded by Alder Ritterbusch. Any changes there? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is approved. Next, report by the mayor. You'll see in your packet and for the public, our 2026 committee and council schedule has been attached there. So for planning purposes, you all might want to take a look at that to see what the meeting schedule looks like for 2026. Otherwise, just wanted to wish everybody happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Special appreciation to Alders Eck and Hinkfus and Stevens and everyone else who contributed to the little festivity that we had before the meeting. So appreciate all of that. And with that, we'll move along to our meeting. We've got a good agenda and hoping we can move through it rather quickly. Announcements from our council. Yeah, Alder Johnson, then Eck.
Thank you, Mayor. Since it is the season of forgiveness, I'll forgive Alder Morgan and his apparent bias in terms of his bias towards police chiefs and his overlooking of fire chiefs. So thank you, Chief Knott, for everything that you guys do as well.
Thanks, Alder Johnson. Alder Eck.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's not in Green Bay, but it involves an alder. So this Friday, Alder Presley is going to be performing. Is that a good way to? Oh, no. At what's it called again? Comedy City. It's in De Pere. So 7:00.
All right.
You're
we'll
welcome.
be there. Other announcements. All right. No recognitions and awards. Next up, we have a presentation from Ishu Gupta, who is a fellow in the mayor's office here. And he has a slide that is about himself, but he doesn't want to talk about himself, so I will talk about him on his behalf. But we've been really fortunate to be able to have Ishu in our office as a fellow brought to us with the Bloomberg Harvard City Leadership Initiative. And so he's been with us now over a year and a few months. And so he's got a 2-year stint with us and has been doing some really great work focused on the city's data strategy and some of the performance management that he'll talk about tonight. He has 10 plus years of experience in impactful digital transformation for state and local governments, served as transition team fellow for the mayor of the city of Gainesville, Florida, worked with City of Providence to improve their recycling rates, and got an undergrad in electrical engineering and a master's in public policy from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. Get the podium. There we go. It's displayed. There we are.
So, thank you, Mayor Genrick. And before I start the presentation, I would like to thank Mayor Genrick for the opportunity that I've been given to serve the city of Green Bay, and also I extend my gratitude to all the city staff members and the council for this opportunity to present the work we have been doing over the last 1 year, like more than 1 year now. And like in between the presentation, if somebody has a question or wants me to stop or repeat something, just please feel free to stop me and ask anything you would like to ask. This should take about like 30 to 40 minutes to go through like all the slides. So the idea of performance management is largely about like building alignment with like within departments and building cadence in terms of seeing how we are doing, how well we are set up to deliver on the services we promise our citizens. And we'll be talking about the foundational work we have done in terms of enabling the performance management in the city of Green Bay, and how we reached to the conclusion that this is something which would be important for the city. And before I get to the performance management, I would like to give a little bit of context in terms of why am I here and why am I doing this. So Bloomberg Philanthropies has like a set of initiatives which works with in different capacities with mayors and senior leadership of different cities to enable the challenging tasks they are performing in the municipal offices. So Mayor Genrick, before I sort of joined the city of Green Bay, Mayor Genrick participated in a mayor leadership program. It's a year-long program and which works on a different aspect, and then it leads to enabling the city to scope out a challenge which they would like to sort of get solved, and that transitions into a City Hall Fellowship. And I'm a City Hall Fellow. It is a 2-year fellowship. It helps in supporting cities in developing and deepening capabilities to address pressing municipal challenges. The another wing of Bloomberg Philanthropies is City Data Alliance, which is a center set up at the Center of Government Excellence at Johns Hopkins University. They work on executive education programs for city leaders and senior staff again. We have been working with them for the last almost 13 months now, first on setting up the data foundational work, and then we got into their second program based on AI and exploring AI. How can we leverage AI in different city services? So in terms of the flow of the presentation today, I will take you through in terms of understanding what performance management system is, what it actually means, what foundations had to exist first before we sort of build a performance management system, and how it sort of shows up as departmental KPIs, and what are the support and direction we are looking for in terms of the next steps. So in terms of like the vision of setting this up, this was largely based on Mayor Genrick's participation in the program and my first initial few months of conversations with the city department heads, department staffs, and also the mayor's office to understand what the gaps are and what is it that we would like to do to overcome some of the challenges we are seeing. And the objectives are very clear in terms of we want to improve service delivery and we want to use data to inform decision making. We want to ensure accountability and transparency across the organization. We want to align all the efforts our departments are doing with the focus areas and the priorities of the city, and engage the community through feedback and evidence-based dialogue, making sure that their feedback is part of our city priorities. So to articulate it, the Green Bay needs a very simple citywide performance management system that unifies departmental data, improves day-to-day operations, and helps City Hall tell a credible story that builds public trust. And performance management is also like a commitment to sort of continuous learning. And this is the team which has worked over the last 1 year to work on different aspects of this initiative. It started with a team of 10 people, and we have later set up a data governance committee, which is a committee of 23 stewards. I will take you into the details of data governance committee and what it does a little later into the presentation. And also want to sort of emphasize here that this is not a IT or a mayor's office initiative. This is something which needs collaboration, which needs listening from every corners of the city hall. And listening is at the core of this to sort of unlock innovation we are looking to sort of learn and improve data services on. So, and also IT and mayor's office plays like an important role, making data accessible, reliable, and secure. But performance belongs to the organization and not to one department. And this is going to be like the larger key in terms of sustaining this effort. So another question comes like, what is actually like performance management and why it matters? So performance management is a very simple management theory which has been functional in a lot of organizations in terms of understanding if they are able to sort of deliver on what they have either promised or what they want to achieve. At its core, it is about turning goals into measurable outcomes and reviewing them regularly and to act on what we learn from that review process. Goals, measures, review cadence, and action are the core pillars of performance management. We need clearly articulated goals. An example could be something like we want X percentage of the roads to be in a certain condition. So we want it to be sort of specified to that extent. Then measurables are indicators which help us learn in terms of where we are, what we have been doing, and where we want to be. It helps in sort of preserving what we have been doing good, and also letting go of things which are not working for us anymore. Measures are important, and they are only important if it is sort of leading to any kind of conversation and behavioral change in the organization. Review cadence is the process which enables vertical and horizontal communication channels and makes sure that people are talking and using these data points and measurables or measures to bring into the meetings and sort of decide in terms of what would they like to act on. Performance management also is not an individual or an employee evaluation. It is about systems, like how do we evaluate systems through clarifying what success looks like, what success means for organization. We want to track progress with a small set of defined indicators or KPIs, as we call them. So we want to sort of select a few indicators which would keep or build that individual knowledge into institutional knowledge, create routine conversations about results, and drive improvement through actions. And it also helps in reporting transparently across the organizational hierarchies, including horizontal hierarchies. To understand this a little better, and I think it'll be useful if for people who have the printout can sort of read in there. And excuse my brevity of sort of putting something like this in front of people of Green Bay. So this performance management system for an organization is for a team who wants to build a Super Bowl. And then how KPIs are kind of built. So think of like a general manager of a team who says that he or she wants to make money for the owners. They will largely set like two objectives for themselves: win a Super Bowl and fill the home stands to 100%. Now, these two are like very different objectives, but actually speak to the same goal. The general manager will sort of delegate this further to the coaching team and the marketing team, and these two will become different objectives for these two teams. Winning the Super Bowl means that the team should be functioning and performing really good, and the head coach will have that priority. The marketing team will focus on making sure that the stands are full. Now, the head coach will have their own set of indicators or KPIs. Passing attack amasses 300 plus yards per game. Defense allows fewer than 17 points per game. Special teams unit ranks in top 3 in punt return coverage. So this is further breaking down that one objective into 3 objectives. Now, when the head coach sort of delegates this further to their team, they will distribute these 3 KPIs to 3 different teams, and then they will have their own set of KPIs. The offensive coach will focus on making sure that the team generates 300 yards per game passing attack. The defensive coach's objective would be give up fewer than 17 points per game, and the special teams coach objective would be to improve top 3 ranking for punt coverage team. Then they will have their own sort of set of KPIs. Where the data comes in is basically the KPIs of the offensive coach, defensive coach, and the special teams coach. Now, to achieve 65% completion rate will need a data source, where the data is being collected either in every game and every practice session to make sure that it becomes part of every team meeting in terms of what is it that we are doing well, what is it that is not working, and what is it that we would like to do going forward. And then there is a cadence in terms of at what frequency the team meetings would happen, at what frequency the head coach would meet the general manager, and how all these KPIs actually speak to the larger objective. The key is to make sure that every role has a clear objective and a clear alignment to the larger objective, so that every person can find their place into the larger sort of objectives. And overall, this is about setting a vision without any kind of vagueness. When we say that we want to sort of have a passing attack amass of more than 300 yards plus yards per game, it is a very clear objective. It removes the vagueness. It defines what is good, what is better, what is not better. It helps the organizations to learn without blaming. It helps a continuous process within the structure so that people are sort of continuously learning from what they're doing. It also sets up a structure of accountability, and it also sets up accountability without fear because it gives very early warnings. It does not, you will sort of learn a lot in advance that what is it that we are set up for. So this is like a very simple example of what performance management would look like. And this is also a very similar thing it does in any sort of organization, including a city. It aligns efforts across departments so that everyone is moving in the same direction. And this is a very 30,000 feet perspective into the operating cycle of any performance management system, that you set the direction, you define KPIs, you ensure that you have data, you have ownership of the data, then you review. There's a cadence to the reviewing the performance, and then there's a process of acting, improving, and then putting those learnings back into the direction in terms of so that it reflects in terms of what is that we are learning and how we are going to sort of change ourselves. These are the pillars to sort of sustain this effort, making sure that there's a alignment across the organization hierarchy. Things are time bound and measurable, which drives results. So we should be sort of continuously driving results, improving processes. Processes is like an integral part of it. How the data flows within the organization is very important. To learn that, we need visibility into processes. And once that process is visible, then people can really sort of contribute to the conversations from gaps perspective in terms of highlighting what is it that is exactly not working. So process visibility is another very important part of it. Continuity and improvement, so that people are kind of seeing how it is helping them improving in their daily work, overall operations, resident services, and also giving them space to experiment and innovate. It also needs continuous investment in staff through training and development, building communication channels, and operational excellence. This is IT and data and tech are integral part of setting up this performance management system, and we need continuous investment in IT modernization, data sharing practices, digital services, and tech pilots. So when I'm saying data, what it means in Green Bay. So over the last 1 year, we have set up a data inventory in terms of building a database of data, what exists in city of Green Bay. And so far, we have been able to identify 500 databases across departments and just try to see that 40% of these databases are updated on a daily basis. And this is the volume of data we are talking about. 60% of these data sets have more than 10,000 records. 15% of them have around 100,000 records, and 25% of them have between 10,000 to 100,000 records. So this is the kind of volume we are talking about, and data governance is needed because, as we can see, only 79 out of 500 databases can currently be accessed by other systems. So we need to sort of make sure that these data sets are talking to each other so that we can learn from like a more holistic perspective. Now, what this work would look like in Green Bay. So what you see in green has already been done. I will be going into the details of each one of this. The yellow is something which is work in progress, and the last three, which are in red, are going to be something which we would come to in the next 1 to 2 years. So the first step to setting up the performance management is to city vision and priority, which is basically like focus areas. We decide on to like 4 or 5 focus areas, which is the leadership's priority. And then we set up the data governance so that we know like where the data exists. Data inventory is needed in terms of what systems do we have, who owns that data, and I will also take you into the data inventory we have set up, and also making sure that the data we are using is trustworthy so that we can rely on it. We can make sure that when we are saying that we have evidence, we actually have it. Data quality and integration is again like the next step after data inventory. We review and audit almost every database which is going to feed into the system, so that to make sure that the data we are going to use is standardized. A very simple example would be that, for example, when we collect name in any application or in any form or in any database, if one database collects first name first and second name second, and the next database collects second name first and first name second, then these two will have problem in integration. So we want to make sure that data standards and data quality are in place so that these data sets can integrate better. The next is to make sure that we have data visualization, to make sure that each focus area has the set of KPIs and how to use that KPIs to make sure that we are learning holistically and we are able to communicate the full picture. So the dashboards and performance reports become the visualization of it, which becomes eventually part of the meetings. So these dashboards will eventually, I'll also take you through like one of the dashboards we have set up for our police department. Then the next is decisions and actions. Then what is it that we are learning in those performance review routines or meetings? And then monitoring and evaluation. So the first 6 steps are a very continuous thing. For some priorities, this would look like on a quarterly basis. For some, it would look like for a monthly basis. And these are like the smaller loops that you will come to the dashboard, see something, and then go back to saying that, okay, this is what we need to sort of work on, or we need more data, so we need to sort of add more sources to the data inventory or review the data quality. The monitoring, evaluation, and feedback is something which we come to about in like a 3-year thing, in a 3-year cycle, which then feeds back to the city's strategic priorities or the city vision for the future. So this is a continuous loop, but all these loops work at a different frequency in a different cycle. Why it matters to the city council? Essentially because it helps decide clearly. It helps in building and strengthening accountability and transparency. And it also helps in building evidence, especially when choices are tough and trade-offs are real. So because data helps in seeing things more objectively, it creates a picture which is more collectively understood and aligned and brings alignment. So to sort of summarize it, I would say that stewardship of taxpayer dollars, how we are spending, are we like what's the value that we are generating out of the money we are spending? It helps us articulate that more effectively. Better service delivery and resident experience. We are able to engage with residents with much more confidence. It helps in moving from we think we are doing well to defining that well and saying that we have the evidence. It helps in building accountability without blame. It creates a shared sense of ownership. It replaces surprise problems with early warnings, and it helps in strategic decision making. What we have done so far in the last 14 months, we have largely focused on these 4 pillars: strategy and governance, enterprise data visibility, standards, sharing and risk management, applied use cases, and early value. Data strategy, Connect Green Bay is our 3R data strategy plan. We have set up a data governance committee, which has met about 21 times this year. We have been meeting on a bi-weekly basis. We have set up a data inventory now, which is visible to everyone in the city hall. We have set up a data management. We have like a draft of data management standards and data sharing guidelines. We have also reviewed bulk waste pickup and fleet management in the city hall to sort of see the kind of value that data can generate for the city. We have also participated with City Data Alliance in terms of exploring the early use cases of AI in the city, and also figured out like the kind of data foundations we would need if we want to leverage AI in city operations. We have generated generative AI use guidelines, which is currently under review. Connect Green Bay is a 3-year strategic plan which focuses on data quality, community engagement, and data-driven culture. We launched this in February of 2025, and this has been the strategy document which has largely guided us in terms of what we should be doing next. And these are all the initiatives we have taken, and a lot of work under these categories is done. Data Governance Committee, we set it up in January 2025. It is a nominated team of data stewards across departments. We have 23 data stewards across the organizations now. The purpose of the meeting is to basically meet bi-weekly. We do workshops, we do trainings, we also meet for understanding and building a collective leadership around data. All the key tasks have been completed under the guidance of this committee, and the key committee is responsible for all decision making. This should also be seen as like and treated as like a long-term infrastructure, so that the city keeps improving regardless of turnover. This is the structure that makes progress durable and will sort of keep making sure that individual knowledge becomes institutional knowledge. Data inventory is data on data. It is basically data base of the city data. I will just take you through this. Second. Sorry. Okay. So this is the data inventory. It is integrated into the city's Microsoft Teams. And so if you like go to any department, let's say if you go to community and economic development, so it'll just take a few seconds, yeah. So on the left, what you see is all the databases which this department has. And then if we click on any database, we will get to know who the data steward is, what system stores this data, what's the data source, the description in terms of what information does this data base has, who's the data owner, like the primary person who understands this data and who manages this data. This is the contact address of the person. If there is any company, like for example, if there is any database which is not owned by the city but owned by a contractor or a vendor, then who is the contact person, so that we can reach out to and figure out to get like raw data for us. If the data is sensitive or not, if the city owns data, if the data is used in decision making of the department, how important is this data for the daily processes? Are there access controls? Can other systems access this data? Can the data be permanently deleted? Can the data be made public? Collection start date, frequency of data quality check, data storage location, server, and then how many records and information does it have? So this is like a 30 variable data set on each database of the city. And this is not flashy, but this is like the backbone of the performance management system, because this is where like every system would come and we will get to know in terms of what the data looks like. The next thing which I like to show is the dashboard. And this is like a very simple example of what we have set up for the police department has set up for the city. We will sort of make it public sometime very soon. So this is a crime clearance data for the city of Green Bay, and this is navigate. You can navigate this by districts. For example, if you like click on district A, and you can zoom in. Sorry. And then you can also see what kind of. So we have categorized aggravated assault, auto theft, burglary, robbery, and theft from auto. So you can check all of this data on a very regular basis. And this is just like one example. So the idea is to set up the Open Data Hub, which will have Data Resource Center, Data Learning Center, and City of Green Bay website. So all of this would sort of come into one location. And just to sort of avoid confusions, these are not like real locations. These are approximate locations. This will not sort of, yeah, I could see that conversation happening. That's the first question which comes to mind. Sorry, I'll have to unplug again. Any questions so far? Yeah.
500 databases.
Mike.
You've listed in here 500 databases.
Yeah.
And it looks like you inventoried them all?
Yeah.
Are all of them valid?
Yeah.
Are we using them all?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the city processes. These are the databases which are current, which we use.
Wow. That's scary.
And there might be more. So, I mean, my sort of conversations with the data stewards tell me that we are somewhere about 80% there, and this will never be 100%, and 80% is a very good stage to be in. So these are the data source platform I just showed you, and then we have worked on zeroing down on the focus areas. And if you look at city operations, this is largely like core services and budget programs. And then focus areas are like complex long-term initiatives requiring significant staff capacity and cross-departmental coordination or collaboration. And we have been able to zero down on 5 of these focus areas. And then, so which are organizational excellence, fiscal responsibility, balanced and equitable community development, modern community-centered public safety, 21st century infrastructure and amenities, intentional employee recruitment and engagement. So these are the 5 focus areas the city has decided that are the long-term initiatives. For building these KPIs and the performance indicators, we have engaged with the 23 data stewards and all the departments to build KPIs using these focus areas in focus. And we have been able to come up with about 200 of these KPIs distributed across these 5 focus areas. And this is, again, like when we say that this has happened, this is about 55, 56 meetings distributed with different departments of our team, and also but 22 meetings of data governance committee, which has largely executed this whole initiative. Now we'll go to departmental KPIs, and I think Joe will take over.
Yeah, thanks, Ishu. He said we have 200 KPIs. We're going to go over 2 tonight, just 2. So bear with us. So with community and economic development, they have 3 overall objectives: business retention and creation program, improved service delivery, and housing. So all of those objectives have their own KPIs, and we're going to walk through the KPI for affordable housing. Want to go to the next slide? So this is what departments did to build out their own KPIs. You can see there's the main objective, which in this case is to create and preserve affordable housing across certain area median income levels. There's a KPI name, there's a KPI description, and then there's the data source, which we have 500 of them. And the data source is helpful to know where it's housed and how to track it, and then also how to report out the data. Then we have the measurement frequency. These will be for annual measurement. So for affordable housing, we have what we're tracking is the dollar amount that's invested by the city, the total housing units permitted, and then from there, we're breaking down to the total units based on the area median income. And then we're also tracking the preservation of affordable units. So that's essentially what we've done for each KPI is breaking down to what we're tracking. So I gave that example for affordable housing, and Director Jewson's going to give an example of public works. And if you guys have any questions about that process, please let us know.
And next is Valerie.
Yes. So for DPW, we have a number of different key priorities that we identified. We group them by different areas, such as fleet management, parking, sanitation. For example, we're tracking fleet age and use for improved efficiency and reliability. Tracking various KPIs for parking services to improve effectiveness of services, and a number of other ones. And I'm going to drill down on the KPI that we have for roadway condition. So for roadway condition, we're tracking a number of different things. Percent of roadway miles rated fair or better condition based on our PASER ratings. So that's a scale of 10. Everything above 5 would be fair condition. And we update that data every 2 years. And then the other data that we track is number of miles reconstructed, number of miles milled and paved, number of miles resurfaced, total miles, and total roadway segments, as well as our budget for all of that. And that just gets at, how much roadway we're improving and, how that compares to our total roadway system.
And as you can see, so when we build these performance management systems, we make sure that we have a data source listed in there. This data source will be the same data source which we have in data inventory. And then from that data inventory, we can actually track down in terms of where the data is, where the data is stored. We can see if that can be accessed or not, if it needs sort of any special API to be built to access the data, and what it needs to close this loop. And then data visualization will help us in terms of bringing all of this information together to inform in terms of how we are doing when it comes to the roadway condition in the city of Green Bay. I know I've discussed a lot. Just to summarize all of that, this is largely what the gaps which we identified to come up with the leadership vision I presented. The siloed data plus unclear outcomes. The data is currently siloed. Nobody knew that we will have 500 databases or more. Absence of communication or lack of communication. We have lack of horizontal and vertical communication channels, tight budgets and rising expectations, which is like very common for the city governments. Service demands and resident expectations are continuously increasing, and we need something like this so that we are continuously learning and investing back in from those learnings into the how we serve our citizens. Workforce strain impacts service levels. Then interventions, what we have done over the last 1 year is basically we have built an alignment through data governance and a performance management framework. We have set up a data governance committee, which is a cross-departmental platform for people to have conversations on data, around data, and building data governance for the city. We have started to put a performance management, which basically means we are measuring what matters to us. We are building capacity and cadence. We are continuously investing through trainings and workshops to make sure that we are building capabilities and cadence of our workforce. Where we want to make sure that we have a sharper focus in terms of what is it that we are achieving. We want to have a greater capacity to deliver to our citizens and residents. We want to make sure that we are learning fast enough and we are correcting quickly, and we want to build a culture of strategy, curiosity, and innovation. And that is going to be like largely phase 2 and 3 over the next 2 years. Key asks, since alders are like the most familiar face of the city government and they have a very strong public communication, we would really like and value if they can help us in terms of what is it that the people would like to sort of see in this performance management, what is it that they value. We want to create a consistent feedback loop into performance reviews. We want to make sure that we are continuously talking about what we are building, and we want to formalize and encourage a simple recurring mechanisms to review as KPI builds up and when we are seeing the trends. We want to set expectations for transparent, plain language reporting so that we know and we are communicating our story to the citizens and residents of Green Bay honestly and transparently. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for the presentation issue. You know, I always feel a little bit guilty carving out a good deal of time for presentations like this at our city council meeting, but I think it's really important for our alders to get an understanding of what's been going on sort of beneath the surface and what will continue to emerge a little bit more publicly as we continue to move down the line, especially once, you know, more dashboards are ready and available to our public. And as Ishu was saying at the tail end of the conversation, I mean, our alders are the ones that are elected officials that are best integrated into our neighborhoods, and they're the ones that are hearing questions and concerns and complaints on an everyday basis. And so I think you all have a greater understanding of maybe what people are looking for as far as, you know, information being shared with our residents. So thanks to Ishu and to Joe and Dave and the entire data governance committee, everybody that's played a role in pulling all of this information together and who's committed to seeing this multi-year effort through. So with that, any questions from alders? Yeah, Alder Presley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really fantastic. That was exciting for me. So if we do have things that people tell us that they want tracked or they want visualizations for, who do we go to with that? Do we go to you?
Like anyone, like Joe, me, Mayor, or anyone, like any department should be fine. Yeah, we meet on a regular basis. Yeah,
roads. It's always roads, but
Yeah.
there are more.
And I mean, you're joking, but also serious. Like we've got our Pacer ratings that are up on the website going back, I don't know how many years, several cycles. It's done every other year. I know this year's rating is just still finishing up, or maybe it was just finalized within the last few days. You know, we have a pre-existing like data hub where GIS maps are located, and so that's always a really good resource. But yeah, I would point people to the website and the maps there. Yeah, Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Ishu, for the presentation. Really Appreciate your commitment and time investment here in the city. And much like Alder Presley, I too am kind of a data nerd, so this whole thing excites me. Um, one of the things I was curious about those when you talk about the KPIs, I guess, what type of guidance or security is there in terms of establishing KPIs that show progress and advancement? And I'm going to give you an example. I think roads are a great place to start. And I think the example that Director Jusen had provided in here where, the objective is to have every road graded at this level or higher, that to me shows advancement and a commitment to where you want to be versus something that I've oftentimes seen in the Public Works Annual Report, which is we fill 20,000 potholes a year. It's a metric, but it's actually not a metric I like. I'd rather have that number be smaller because it reflects we have higher quality roads, right? So just kind of curious if you guys have had that kind of discussion around the metrics that truly are meaningful that require,
Yes.
us to monitor and show progress towards that objective.
So that has been like largely the focus in terms of like really going to the weeds of it in terms of saying that we want to know anything and everything about like, for example, when we are saying roadway condition, we want to understand like the potholes being repaired like in every mile. So we want to make this data granular in terms so that it is not something which is just a metric, which tells the story in terms of what is it that we are doing that this will not repeat or this will repeat. That has been like largely the focus. Joe and I have had like multiple conversations individually with all the departments, making sure that we understand the whole process and what it means when we say that we want to improve roadway conditions in Green Bay. So and once we have the baselines of each of these data sets, of each of these KPIs, and I think we'll be able to sort of answer your question with much more clarity because then we will know where we are. And that is actually the next step, and then we will also set up the goal based on in terms of what the trends have been saying so far, and I would like to say that we are on the track.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Any other question?
All right. Thanks again for the presentation. Really appreciate it. Next, we have appointments. Some reappointments. Motion to approve the reappointments made by Alder Profit and seconded by Alder Stevens. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and those reappointments are made. We have a number of items on Committee of the Whole. No, we're going to take these individually. Motion to approve made by Alder Ritterbusch and seconded by Alder Profit. Any to be taken individually? Alder Profit?
5.
Number 5 to be handled separately. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 5 on that, Alder Profit.
This item comes before us for, we don't need to go down that road, but we have it on L5, M1, and X6. So I know there's been a lot of work. I want to thank the McDonald companies and GP for meeting with me a few times since our last meeting as well, but the amount of staff time that has gone into this has been tremendous. So I would just love if staff could kind of paint a picture of not necessarily why it's on here 3 times, but just where we're at and where we need to go and what all those items are going to do for us tonight.
Great. Director Renier-Wig.
All right, I'll give it a shot. Here we go. So this zoning originally came before the council in January of this year. Council actually approved the Plan Commission recommendation, which was to rezone this entire parcel downtown. That went through the first reading. And then March 4th, we had the public hearing. Council held this item. March 4th, they held it on the 18th. They held it on the 15th of April. And at that point, I believe Scout Development, Green Bay, went into a planning option with GP on this project and had plans for the site and wanted to work with us on it. So on July 15th, we did a memorandum of understanding with Scout Development, which is McDonald Properties, to kind of work on this together, to come up with a compromise, to figure out a way we could rezone this parcel and kind of meet the needs of all parties involved. So since that time, I know McDonald Properties has been working on a number of projects in that area. We actually met, I think December 2nd, this came back again and council held it because McDonald Properties came and said, hey, give me a little bit more time, come back at the 16th. We met between those 2 days, and actually I think we've come up with a solution and something that might be acceptable at this point, which would be, and the map was in your packet, but so the parcel is one big parcel right now. So the southern portion, southern half, would be zoned downtown. There would be a 150-foot buffer line of light industrial on top of that, and then to the north it would remain general industrial. This agenda item number 5 is specific, and it's at the committee of the whole because we haven't discussed this buffer area in this regard. So this agenda item is specific to the 150 feet buffer area that we would like to get approved. The second reading involves the downtown section, the southern portion. And then the third item at the end is the first reading, which we would love to see a first and final on that buffer zone, which would complete this rezoning then to downtown, 150 light industrial, general industrial to the north. And Mr. McDonald is here as well if there are comments, and he would like to speak. If he would like to speak.
Yeah, Alder Prophet, you still have the floor.
Yeah. Do you want him to speak at all? I would. Yeah. Okay. I would just add too, I think initially there's hesitation towards leaving any of that partial general industrial for a multitude of reasons. I know that McDonald Companies and GP are still working through the potential for a PUD as well to just get more specifics on this site. But I think dispelling of this action that we've seen is the right move tonight, and that allows them a little more time without having to continue to give them a turnaround time to come back with more answers for us. This allows them the opportunity to work through that PUD to flesh out a little more. So I'm comfortable with this. You seem good. Don't need to add. You don't want to add? Right. Everything is still under GP. My understanding is that's been extended till June, I believe, of next year. Yeah. So there's still time and there's still work to be done on this site, but it's a massive site. So rightfully so, it would take some time. But appreciate GP, McDonald Companies, and staff really just, it's a complicated site and we have something in front of us that I'm excited for.
Is that a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder DeLee. Discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. Ordinance's second reading for adoption. Motion to suspend the rules and take up these items with one roll call vote, made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Presley. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, the rules are suspended. Motion to adopt made by Alder Presley, seconded by Alder DeLee. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will use the board.
You may vote.
All right, and those are approved unanimously. Report of the Redevelopment Authority. Motion to approve made by Alder Hinkfist, seconded by Alder Galvin. Discussion here. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved. Improvement and Services Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder DeLee and seconded by Alder Ritterbusch. Items here to be handled separately. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved. Protection and Policy Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Prophet. Items here to be handled separately. One. Any others? Hearing none others. All in favor of approving the remainder of that report, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Actually, we don't have a recommendation on 5. Is that right? Okay, cool. Yeah.
I don't think it defaults to staff recommendation. I think it defaults to what exists today.
Yeah. So I think we need to handle 1 and 5 separately. Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of the report will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exceptions of items 1 and 5. On 1, motion to open the floor made by Alder Profit, seconded by Alder DeLee. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open, and this is to deny an appeal by Raven Walleen regarding the denial of her over-the-limit permit. It was held over from the 12-2 meeting. So if anyone would like to speak, just approach the podium, state your name and address, and we provide for 3 minutes.
Caleb Ledna, 2221 Leisure Court. Dear Green Bay City Council members, I know I spoke at length at the last meeting, but I promise to try to keep this one a little shorter. I'm here today because these dogs mean the world to Raven. As I shared last time, when I asked her what she wanted for Christmas, the first thing she said was her dog permit. Breaks my heart to have to tell her that I can't just get that for her. I can only say I'll do my best to make it happen. At the last meeting, you approved Raven's mom. To put it into perspective, even though she does not live in the same building, she lives across the parking lot. From Raven's front door to her mom's front door, it's only about 200 steps. Raven and I rarely walk the dogs around the apartment building. We always take them over and around the pond by her mom or take them to a dog park. Often, Mia, the smallest one, is already done going to the bathroom before we even get there. So on the really cold days like we had on this past weekend, we had Raven's mom watch Mia until the other dogs were done. Raven does not raise these dogs alone. Just like with children, it's a joint effort. I'm there every single night helping. If Raven and I need to go and be gone for a few hours, we text her mom to go and check on them. Her mom helps take them out even when I'm not there. People pass by these dogs in the hallway. The dogs may sniff, but there's never any aggression, just tail wagging and begging for attention. Now, there are some problem dogs, and I'm aware of that. The dogs that are aggressive and have lunged at me and Raven through a glass door. Off-leash dogs, owners weren't picking up, but all these dogs aren't asked to leave. A dog that gets pulled between cars when anyone walks outside because he can't be trusted is not being asked to be given up. But when it comes to Raven's calm, well-behaved dogs, the ones that people could spook without a reaction, we're being asked to give them up. Raven has followed all the rules. She submitted her ESA paperwork to the apartment complex. She got the dogs approved before moving in, and she applied for the permit right away when she found out she needed to. She ensures they're quiet throughout the day, and she even often asks me to check the camera throughout the day to make sure they're being good. Every time I check that camera, they're either asleep on the bed or nesting in the pillows or in the blankets. Raven has done everything right. She's not asking for anything she doesn't deserve. She didn't just go out and get more dogs. These are dogs she took in when her dad died. Mia was her dad's, and when her brother needed more money because he was now living alone without his dad, Raven took in Taya as well. Now, I know Raven is probably going to get upset with me for mentioning this, but I think it's important. Neelix is 13. The average lifespan for a German Shepherd is 9 years to 13 years. Mickey, a larger lab mix, typically lives to around 13 as well, and he is 12. Taya is 6, with an average lifespan of 10 to 12 years, and Mia is 6, with Chihuahuas typically living 14 to 16 years. These aren't untrained puppies. These are older and middle-aged dogs that have already been settled in their lives, routines, and love they receive from Raven. Their lives are precious, and the time they have left is limited. We don't tell grandparents in senior living communities, sorry, it's time to go back to foster care. These dogs deserve their final years to be filled with the love they've come to know. Raven deserves the peace of mind knowing that it's coming from her. So I ask everyone, please look at the facts. Raven followed the rules. The apartment complex has no issues with the dogs. And consider how well behaved they are and their age and bond they share with Raven and each other. Please allow Raven to cherish the remaining time she has with these dogs. And lastly, please help me grant a Christmas wish for Raven, and that's so that she can keep her dogs. Thank you.
Testimony, sir. Any questions? Yep. Alder Galvin.
Thank you for your testimony, sir. The other dogs that you're referring to in the building, are there 4 of them?
There's not 4 of them, no.
So it's just one dog, one apartment that you're referring
So
to?
there's multiple different dogs that are issues there. It's not just one specific dog.
Okay,
but
those specific dogs that are having issues,
right,
Are they a single dog in an apartment? Are they multiple dogs in an apartment?
I believe they're single dogs in an apartment.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thanks, sir. Anyone else?
Raven Moline, 300 Bond Street, Apartment 118. Hello, Green Bay City Council. I know I spoke 2 weeks ago at the last meeting, but I'm here again because I want to clearly restate what I feel is most important. First, I did not go out and simply get more dogs. These dogs came into my care when my father passed away and my brother was unable to take care of them. They have been with me for their entire lives, and I stepped up to keep them together during a very, very, very difficult time for my family. I have not received a single complaint from the apartment complex or the humane officer. I have followed every rule to the letter. I did not try to hide my dogs or wait until someone discovered them. The apartment complex was aware that I had 4 dogs, and they told me it was okay. When I learned that I needed to register them, I did so immediately, and then I applied for the permit. My application was denied by the humane officer, not because of anything my dogs have done, but solely because of a number and because of unrelated issues involving other dogs in the apartment complex. I would also like to clarify some confusion. The officer stated that the apartment only allows 2 dogs, which is true, but the complex also allows emotional support animals. Just like my mother, who was approved at the last meeting, I have 2 ESAs, and I have their paperwork with me if any of you want to see it. This means that from the apartment complex's perspective, I am in compliance and only have 2 dogs. There is no issues between my dogs and the apartment management. While I do have 4 dogs, it is rare that I'm caring for all of them alone. I help my mom with her dogs, and she helps with mine. My boyfriend's with me every night after work, and assists with their care too. Yes, there are times such as early mornings before work. Occasionally during the week when I take all 4 out by myself. On average, I handle all 4 dogs alone about 5 times a week. The rest have never had an issue handling them. They are well behaved and manageable. I understand there may be a concern because they are larger dogs, but I have demonstrated that I am capable of caring for them safely. I know I only have 2 to 3 minutes, so I'll finish with this. I do not plan to live here forever. My goal is to move when my lease is over. The officer mentioned that the property is poorly managed, but respectfully, I don't understand how that relates to my dogs. I ask that you look at my situation and my dogs individually, not as unrelated issues within the complex. We are halfway through the lease with no complaints, no calls, and no problems. My dogs are fully cared for, up to date, and clearly well loved. If I didn't love them, I wouldn't be standing here for the 3rd time fighting to keep the dogs that have been a part of my life and my family for so long. I understand there are concerns, but my dogs have shown through their behavior that they are not an issue. If the goal is to reduce calls, removing my dogs will not solve the underlying problem. Addressing dogs that have actually caused issues will. Thank you for your time and consideration. I ask one more time that you take into account their age, their health, and their proven behavior that has resulted in no complaint calls. Please allow me to keep my dogs. Please allow me to continue giving them the love and stability they have always known, especially as they reach their later years of lives. Thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. Any questions? Yeah, Alder Stevens.
All right, thank you for coming this evening. So you stated you had 2 dogs registered. I have a question for you. So fair housing laws regarding apartment complexes are a little different. So when you said you had them registered, did you talk to your doctor or psychiatrist to have them submit a letter in reference to having those 2 animals?
I do have a letter, and I do have their certificates. I could, if you need to see that, or if you want to see that, I can pull that up. I don't think I have the letter in this packet, but I could always pull it up on my phone.
Okay, but you did go through those proper steps with your
Yes.
psychiatrist or your doctor?
Yes, I did.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thanks again. Anyone else on this item? Motion to close the floor made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Alder Eck?
I think Officer Mavis is here, and I know we were waiting to hear from her, so I guess that's what I would want to know, what from her perspective, why she recommended denial. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. All right. Officer Mavis, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Good evening. My name is Officer Mavis. I'm a nationally certified humane officer. I've been employed with the City of Green Bay for the last 18 years. Since 2016, I've been in the capacity of a sworn humane officer. I conduct both animal control and law enforcement related tasks, which also encompass the excess dog permit application. In the City of Green Bay, they limit the number of animals each family dwelling unit can possess. It's 2 dogs and 3 cats. And part of that process is that if you choose to have more animals, you must first apply for the variance before obtaining those animals. Oftentimes, people are not aware of our city ordinances, and my goal is to get them into compliance with applying for the variance, obtaining licenses and rabies vaccinations. Rabies vaccines and licenses are required by state law and city ordinance. And over the last couple of years, I have been in contact with the Broadway Lofts and the Fort at the rail yard. We've had many issues, animal issues, aggressive dogs, uncontrolled dogs, people not picking up their animals' waste, over the limit of dogs, trying to get people to rabies vaccinate and license their pets. Oftentimes, it's fallen on deaf ears with management. I have gone in each calendar year with our community police officer, left documents on how to get reduced vaccination services for low-income residents, licensing applications, advise that if any occupants have more than 2 dogs or 3 cats, they must apply for a variance. And the goal here is to mitigate the nuisance-related issues that we have at that apartment complex, and it's great. I know there was made mention of aggressive dogs. Every animal complaint we take enforcement action on through education, written warnings. If mediation attempts fail, it is enforcement action. There is an aggressive dog that is on the premises that is on notice of aggression. And I advised if there are any incidences after that time, I will unfortunately seek a destruction order. So they are aware of that. Ms. Wallin had filed for an excess dog permit the end of August. I processed that permit in September. At that time, someone signed off on the variance who was employed at the facility. They did not have the right to apply for that variance, or approve it, I should say. And then I was told it's 2 dogs per unit by management. They've had several managers turnover with management over the last year. And when I denied the permit just due to the number of animals in a small rental property shared with multiple people where there's multiple animals, the likelihood of a nuisance being created is great. And so I have to look at that and make the recommendation to either approve or deny the permit. Based on that, I denied the permit because the first time we also did not get the signature and they were exceeding the number of dogs per unit. That permit was refiled again in October. It went to council. I explained the situation. State law defines an emotional support animal, and I'm happy to explain. An emotional support animal means an animal that provides emotional support, well-being, comfort, and companionship for an individual, but that is not trained to perform tasks for the benefit of an individual with a disability. What I often see in the field are folks that end up getting multiple animals. They deem them as emotional support animals, which are separate than service animals. It is deemed as emotional support animal, not multiple animals. And we do have issues with this, having animals be controlled and that sort of stuff. When the variance was filed with this particular case, City Council had approved Wallin's mother to keep 2 emotional support animals and 2 additional animals on a property that is adjacent to the apartment. It's kind of like a condo style. There's a little bit more room there. I also denied the mother just because the city limit is 2 dogs, and just coming in with an additional 2 more dogs, that's a lot of animals for a property, let alone a rental property where we have pretty big animal related issue. Management issues, and it is an issue just to get compliance with this sort of stuff. I am empathetic of their situation. I understand that animals are part of their family. I also try to explain that as an animal owner, you have to understand our animal ordinances, just like you obtain a vehicle. You need to know the rules of the road and that sort of stuff. These are state laws. There are city ordinances that are in play. It's important to know what our ordinances are pertaining to animals and pet ownership to ensure, there aren't issues.
Thank you for the testimony and all the work, Alder Eck.
Thank you, Mayor. So I know part of the process is you send letters to people that live around that particular home. Obviously, it's an apartment, but
Right.
so I'm assuming you sent the letters, and I was just wondering if you had any negative responses from the neighbors.
Right. So letters did not go out in that particular instance because they were not approved. The permit was denied by management. Management at that time, I spoke with a woman named April. She advised that there was a complaint. At times, Raven would watch her family's dogs. So sometimes there would be 5 dogs at the unit. There was a complaint of a loose dog complaint. So the permit was denied as it was incomplete.
Okay, so have you had any contact with management since it sounds like 2 of them were deemed the emotional support since then, or there's new management? There was an indication that they now have approval from management. I'm just wondering if you had talked recently with the current management to collaborate that.
I am told that they have new management as of 2 weeks ago, and I'm not sure. They have literally turned over management every couple of weeks. We continue to get notification from the, what it is it's a rental property that I believe is owned out of Tennessee, and they have different management, and they're held for maybe, couple weeks to maybe a month, and then they turn over, and it's been a struggle as far as law enforcement issues go, animal control issues go, and it's hard to get any cooperation over there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Galvin.
Officer Mavis, do you know how many apartments there are in this building?
That I'm not aware of.
Could you give me an estimate?
I know it's several floors. I want to say maybe that there's 8 units on each floor. That's just a guesstimate.
It's like 200.
238. All right. And how many animal calls do you have an idea how many calls you're getting there?
I don't know how many animal calls I have been to over the years there, but I would say it's quite frequently. I've had issues of dog attacks, issues where dogs have bitten people, dogs have caused injury to other people, other animals, issues in the elevator, in the hallway. I've had animals defecating in the hallway, no one picking it up, defecating and trespassing on private property along that area. Donald Driver Way, 300 Bond Street, issuing orders, hey, for trespassing, allowing your animal to trespass. And a lot of times people don't even call to complain because they don't want to get their neighbor in trouble, yet this just adds to the chronic issue over there of it's just too many animals saturated for that property size.
All right. You talked about service animals. My impression is that anybody can go to a doctor or a psychiatrist. Is that how it works? And apply to have a dog designated as a service animal as long as they can say that the dog gives them some comfort in some way. Is that correct?
That's correct. Someone could go to an animal shelter and potentially get an aggressive dog or any animal and claim it's their emotional support animal if it provides comfort. We've been seeing issues with that the last couple of years where people try to get a letter from a therapist. The therapist typically never evaluates the animal, never meets the animal, and then in turn they use it just to circumvent the housing concern of a no pet lease. And unfortunately, that affects folks that have certified service animals that are, tasked to perform a service for someone who's got a disability.
All right. In this case, they have 4 dogs, but only 2 are emotional support, and the other are just pets.
Correct. And according to management from my conversation back in October, they don't count emotional support animals towards the allotted number. So according to them, A person can have as many emotional support animals in a rental unit as they want. They don't consider them animals. So if someone wanted to bring in 20 emotional support dogs or cats, they could. And then they could get the 2 additional animals on top of that as well. And they would be within their rights according to that rental unit.
So the apartment management, apartment owners have the right to subvert our ordinance of 2 animals?
No. Unfortunately, that's where this gets to be an issue. They have to provide them, obviously to have an emotional support animal on the property, but that does not supersede our city ordinances limiting the number of animals.
And if what I'm hearing correctly, it sounds like it's been a chaotic management mishmash over there with permission being granted, permission being denied, permission being granted, and then denied.
Correct. Yeah. I've tried to educate, like I said, the management and the property owners doing property referrals. I've gone in and I've sent links. I've explained, hey, get me your rent roll so I can send out notification to every tenant that's got an animal on the lease, and let's send it out to everyone in the building. A lot of folks have animals. They don't, say that they have an animal, and then all of a sudden they move it in later on, and it gets to be an issue.
Can we use the chronic nuisance ordinance against the management and owners of this building?
We did have a meeting, I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. They actually got called in for a chronic nuisance abatement meeting. I met with them along with our community police officers, and the gentleman who came in as a representative for that meeting, I'm told is no longer employed as of 2 weeks ago. So,
but we had the meeting.
Correct.
They've been put on notice.
Yes.
So whether he's employed there or not, we can start taking action and issue ordinance violations, right?
Yeah. If there's not a good faith effort.
Okay. So, but getting back to this particular case, your recommendation is no. There's just too many dogs, period.
It has nothing to do with the animal's behavior. It has nothing to do with the requester in this particular case. Unfortunately, it's just too many animals for the dwelling unit that's shared, unfortunately, by multiple occupants, the grounds, and everything like that. It's too saturated.
All right. And you've been doing this for 9 years?
Yes. And prior to that, I was an animal control intern hired with the city in 2007.
All right. And so when it comes to doing these permits, you've been doing this a lot.
Correct.
And in your opinion, have you been pretty fair and impartial with these things? So you look holistically at everything,
right?
Not just that one apartment.
Correct.
You have to look at everything
yes.
when you make these decisions. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. If I could just say too, it's easier to grant a permit for like a residential home versus an apartment complex, a property that has more dwelling space, potentially a fenced yard, to just kind of help reduce these types of animal related complaints.
That's because the compression of animals, they feed off of each other. Is that not correct?
It's a concern if there's a safety risk and there's a let's just say a loose dog, that's uncontrolled, causes an attack. We now have an attack involving 5 dogs, and obviously it's not an animal's fault. At the end of the day, they're acting based on instinct, but it doesn't help reduce the number of potential safety hazards that would arise from this number of animals on the premises.
All right. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yeah, Alder Hinkfist.
Thank you very much. Just a question on the service animals. So you can have 2 dogs, but if they're service animals, you can have 2 more dogs?
No. So
It's 2.
The city of Green Bay limits the number of animals. It's 2 dogs, 3 cats. If you want more than that, you have to apply for a variance first before acquiring these animals.
And it doesn't matter about being a
Correct.
service animal, unless
Correct.
it's a true service animal that's
Yeah, that would
guiding
be
you.
that would be a service animal, and that would be under ADA standards an animal that's tasked to perform a task for someone with a disability, and then if even them require a license and that sort of stuff.
Thank you very much.
For sure.
Anything else? All right. Thanks again, officer.
Thank you.
Motions, questions, comments?
Motion to grant the appeal.
Alder Johnson makes a motion to grant the appeal. Is there a second for that? Second. Second by Alder Ritterbusch. Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just kind of want to start out. These are difficult circumstances, and I certainly appreciate Officer Mavis and the work she does, and I think she's doing exactly what her job requires her to do, and that's give her professional opinion, and usually that's based on certain standards or rules or laws that this body has established. I think where the appeal process comes in is I find it to be our responsibility sometimes to navigate the nuance that might come with individual situations, and that's why we have this appeal process. And I think the piece where I'm struggling a little bit is that we currently do not have a law that states we limit the number of dogs per property or, per X number of square feet. And I think to a certain extent we might be, the problem seems to be a few other things, a few other animals. Management has been talked about, and there's nothing about the behavior of these dogs that has been cited that has indicated that they are a problem or that the owner is not properly caring for them. And given the elevated age of the animals, I think that is part of the nuance that this body reserves the right to contemplate when we're looking at this. Now, whether or not the back and forth on the apartment, should they have been granted or not. I said this at the last meeting. I still firmly believe that's more of a civil matter, between the tenant and the landlord. But the one thing that I kind of want to point it out is that in the way that I would understand the law is it's 2 dogs per unit right now. And so there's 238 units times 2. That's how many dogs in theory you could have there. Now, we can sit here and talk about whether or not that the law around that should be different. And I think there's a time and a place for that. But right now, I think we're unfortunately treating the symptom and not the disease. And unfortunately, this tenant is, becoming the victim of that. Victim's a strong word. Is becoming sort of the example because of the fact that she had to apply for the appeal. And so my fear is that this really won't change anything in terms of the overall circumstance that exists there. And I think that Alder Galvin was alluding to it with some of his questions about how can we address that. And there's a time and a place for that. And there's tools and mechanisms. But the reality is that apartment complex right now, I just actually talked to one of the folks over there, and they are 80% capacity, meaning they have 20% of their units are vacant. So in theory, that's 46 units, right? If I did my math right, 46 units, which could mean another 92 dogs could come into that. And we're talking about 2 with elevated age that are well cared for. And anybody who's been, around animals could also understand that when you take a dog who's reached this senior age, and if you have to really rehome them, that is a very stressful and challenging circumstance, not only for the animal, but for the pet owner as well. So that is why I made the motion to grant the appeal. I think we can have a certain level of discretion at this level while still acknowledging that there's probably a broader challenge here that we need to address, and that's what the abatement proceedings are for. So,
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments on that? Sure. Alder Galvin.
I respect Alder Johnson's comments. They make sense on a certain level. But at the same time, we have a professional whose job is to assess these situations as to the level of safety that is taking place here at this building, safety, hygiene, a number of other factors that affect quality of life. We can say these dogs don't bark. I've got several in my neighborhood that don't bark that I hear every day. And I've been assured that one is under constant video observation and recording, and yet I don't know how he's getting around it, but he's barking, but he's not barking. So, I mean, we can hear both sides of this. We can also put the owner of the building under abatement, and once he gets that first ticket for $1,300, what's he going to do with all his tenants and their dogs? Is he going to evict them? There's things that go on here, and I think we have to understand that Officer Mavis, like I said, has been doing this a long time. She doesn't do this denial without thinking everything through, and I respect what she does. And I think if she feels there's a good enough reason not to do this, then I'm going to support her and I'm going to vote against this. Thank you.
Additional comments? Alder Hutchison, and then Johnson.
This is at least the third or fourth time I've seen Raven Moline come up and discuss her situation. I initially voted against the appeal. I'm going to vote for the appeal simply because, and I want to stress that the officer is doing her job well. I mean, she got up and she talked like a professional, and she made the right decisions. I think it's up to us, not up to her, to make the approve the appeal. And the way that the applicant Raven Moline has acted and discussed and been consistent, and she is like a model dog owner. We want dog owners to act the way she acts and treats her animals. So I think in this instance, I'm pulling it out as unique in regard to the 4 animals, and I am going to vote to grant the appeal.
Thanks, Alder. I think Alder Johnson is good. Anyone else would like to speak to it? All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it.
Let's go to the board.
Board vote has been requested by Alder Galvin. This is to approve the appeal. It says granting the appeal and under the motion. This is to approve the appeal.
The motion was to grant the appeal. The item was to deny.
That passes 7-5. On to item 5 for consideration with possible action on a draft ordinance relating to the Equal Rights Commission. Motion to approve made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Galvin. Discussion on that. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it, and that item has been approved. Green Bay Police Department granting operator licenses. Motion to approve made by Alder Prophet and seconded by Alder Ritterbusch. Any abstentions? Our names to be handled separately. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved. Plan Commission. Motion to approve made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Stevens. Items here to be handled separately. 3. Any others? Hearing none others, all in favor of the remainder of the report will signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 3. Your wishes, Alder Johnson.
I was just hoping, I know staff's been working on this, so if Director Rainier-Wade could give us an update.
Yes, I think looking at this, we're looking at a recommendation, which is actually the Plan Commission's recommendation, and that is to approve the request for this partial alley closure at 409 West Walnut with the following conditions. A maintenance and closure agreement should be established with the Department of Public Works, which would include that alley having a large enough turn radius to accommodate all of the trucks that would need to be used along that back borderline area. An ingress-egress easement required over the alley or the drive alley portion, connecting to the open portion of the alley, which is heading out to Chestnut. And then the alley closure is contingent on a PUD or other planning device being enacted to create a food truck yard and event space. So if he doesn't come forward with the PUD, then this would be null and void.
Thank you, Director. And I know I did talk with a number of the other impacted business and property owners, and they had said if enough easement is granted that would allow that turn radius, that they would be willing to basically take back their objections so long as that their delivery trucks can still have that access. So with those conditions, I would make a recommendation, or I would make a motion to approve.
All right, Alder Johnson makes a motion to approve with the conditions listed by Director Rainier-Wade, seconded by Alder DeLee. Discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. On to Finance Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Stevens. Items here to be handled separately.
Number
5 others. Hearing none others, all in favor of approving the remainder of that report, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report has been approved with the exception of item 5. I think that was Johnson or Presley. Galvin. Wishes on that?
I'd like to open the floor for interested parties to speak.
Alder Galvin makes a motion to open the floor. Seconded by Alder Prophet. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The floor is open. Name and address in 3 minutes. And this is to approve an agreement with Flock Group Inc. for surveillance camera and aerodrome DFR drone program.
Does my time start when I start talking? Yes.
got
All right, cool. My name is David Badillo. I live in 118 South Washington Street, District 8, with Brian Johnson as my alderman. I rise today to oppose the implementation of the drones for the flock safety system. I mean, generally, I oppose surveillance cameras in general, but especially this one. I would just like to tell the council that the FTC in November of this year, November 5th, opened up a lawsuit against flock safety systems for their unscrupulous use of data farming and their general vulnerability of their cameras. So I would relook at our deployment of their system. I want to read a quote from their website. In my 25 years, the flock safety system is the single most important technology in policing that has come out. Chief Russ, Trussville Police Department, Alabama. I took the time to look up Trussville, Alabama. It's a growing suburb of around 26,000 people with a median income or around $120,000. And it's predominantly white and it's predominantly young with a poverty rate that's very, very low. Now, why they would need a camera system was a mystery to me until I looked up on a map where they are. And they're a suburb of Birmingham, Alabama. And Birmingham, Alabama is a very poverty-stricken area, and so there's a lot of high crime there. So this is a group of people that is extremely affluent and wealthy and paranoid of their neighbors that are in a more vulnerable position than they are. I think it's a bad example to look towards when trying to follow in what type of city Green Bay should be. Now, Green Bay, on the other hand, their median household income is $70,000. So we're not quite as affluent. We're getting there, though. My issue with this is the fact that these drones potentially creepy, and I would like to keep them out of the hands of the Green Bay Police Department as much as possible, because I think their time is better served not flying around drones around the city. But I don't oppose the use of drones from the fire department because of the simple fact of the matter is that the ethos of these two public safety entities are two different things. Last time I checked, the fire department doesn't spend their time searching for fires in their fire trucks. They sit at the fire department until they're called on. But police departments are incentivized to be more proactive. And so I would, if you are going to adopt this system, I would strongly recommend you to keep it out of the hands of the law enforcement arm of the city, because I think that's just a recipe for kind of creepy disaster. And there's only one place in the world that has drones flying around constantly, and it's Gaza, a strip of land that is the most surveilled piece of land in the country. Do we really want to be the Midwest Gaza? And then My other concern is simply the fact of the
Sir,
I'm sorry.
3 minutes.
One second. One more statement. My other concern is just the unsecured nature of this system, and I would urge caution and care. Thank you.
Thanks for testimony. Any questions? All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Jay Gibbs. I actually live in Iron Mountain, Michigan, but I am a staff representative for a local labor union, which represents over 1,200 workers in Green Bay and the surrounding areas. These are people who commute into the city every day. They work here, shop here, they raise families here, and they depend on the decisions that you all make in this room. So while I may not vote in Green Bay, I am deeply affected by how public dollars are spent and how public safety is defined. I'm here to speak in opposition to the proposed $1.3 million agreement for these flock surveillance cameras and a police drone program. At its core, this is a question about privacy, priorities, and the direction that the city would like to move in. Programs like flock cameras and expanded police drone use represent a significant expansion of surveillance in our society. They normalize the idea that people should be tracked, monitored, and collected as data while just existing and moving through any city. Once infrastructure like that is in place, it only expands. The scope of the use expands, data collection expands, and the slow march towards routine monitoring turns into a sprint. This should concern everybody, but especially our working people, immigrants, possible protesters, and anyone who already feels the weight of over-policing in their daily lives. Public safety is built on trust, stability, and meeting people's basic needs, not surveillance. And that brings me to the cost of this. $1.3 million is not an abstract number. It is a major choice to invest in surveillance technology rather than investing directly in the things that can directly reduce crime. This same $1.3 million over 5 years could be put towards expanding affordable housing options in the city, because housing instability is one of the greatest predictors of crime and community harm. It could be used to make our public transportation safer, more reliable, and more accessible for workers who are trying to depend on it to get to their jobs. It could expand our warming shelters and emergency housing resources, especially now in December in northern Wisconsin, with months of dangerous cold ahead of us yet. No one should be sleeping outside while the city invests millions in new surveillance technology. These funds could also support partnerships with labor organizations like my own and other community groups to create job training programs, work development pipelines, and community health initiatives. Stable employment, access to healthcare, and economic security are the greatest tools that any society has in reducing crime in their area. The reality is that the vast majority of crime is born of unmet needs, the lack of housing, the lack of healthcare, and the lack of opportunity. Surveillance doesn't fix any of those problems, but investment in programs that can address them directly do. Green Bay has the opportunity to choose a path that protects privacy, limits police overreach, and invests in people rather than monitoring them. I would urge you to vote no on this proposal and redirect these resources towards solutions that actually make this city safer, healthier, and more resilient. I appreciate your time.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Grace Marquardt. I live at 2209 Fox Heights Lane, and I am here to urge you to oppose this ordinance. Using drones to surveil the city is an infringement on our privacy rights and our civil liberties. Flock groups, they have been under scrutiny ever since they've been founded, and even more so in the past year. Places around the country that have gone into contracts like the one you guys are considering. There's a lot of legality issues with the technology and business practices of this company. It's still considered by experts as a fuzzy gray area on whether or not it violates the Fourth Amendment. And we shouldn't be considering something like this if we don't even know how legal it actually is. And I understand the argument is that our police department is understaffed, but this is absolutely the wrong way to address that issue. We can't be trading our rights to privacy and civil liberties just for convenience and ease of the police department, to send a drone instead of showing up in person instead. Instead of spending this money on this project, we could better spend it on social services, which have been proven to reduce crime rates. I come here today on behalf of my neighbors, friends, family, people who just would not feel safe with this project, with drones flying over us. I'm asking you guys to please oppose this. It doesn't benefit anybody except for the company that would receive the check. Surveillance drones have no place in our city.
That's your testimony. Any questions?
Hello. My name is Scott Dembski of 441 South Quincy Street, Green Bay. I oppose the use of the flock drone program as a first responder item. There's too much surveillance already, and in some other communities, their usage has expanded beyond initial usage advertised. And drones have been used in war zones. And being that some people have sometimes said the streets are a war zone, for some communities, one could see where this could go. Armored drones in the future, AI-driven drones. Israel has used them in a more assiduous program called Where's Daddy, and when they're just conducting its genocide in Gaza with the drone, this Where's Daddy situation, the drone playing sounds of a baby crying. People come out to look for the baby, and the drones will shoot dead whoever comes out. One book from 2023, The Palestine Laboratory, How Israel Exports Technology of Occupation Around the World, by Anthony Lowenstein. He himself is Jewish, if that matters, I'm not sure. Highlights this type of thing. AI, even if it's not used initially, is a tempting tool for those seeking to merely save money. And with all things computing, only as good as those programming it, containing all the biases of the programmers and developers. And historically, other things used in an occupied zone have been brought back for policing. UW professor Alfred McCoy wrote an entire book on this concept, focusing on his field of study in the Philippines and U.S. history during the time of open U.S. empire, when it occupied 100 years ago, which there's no honor in empire, by the way. Policing America's Empire, the United States, the Philippines, and the Rise of the Surveillance State was Alfred McCoy's book on this. He wrote this book in the wake of the unprovoked first strike war of aggression in Iraq and illegal occupation of Iraq. Worried about what tools and techniques might make it home, as such has happened before. In today's interconnected world, tools and techniques don't always stay in one geography, as Lowenstein has noted in his book, especially when it comes to the legal entity that is the corporation that always seeks to increase profits. It's worth remembering that the corporation is legally obligated to constantly increase profits. Mission creep, will they attach weapons in the future to these drones? In any case, there's too much surveillance in our society already, and I'm opposed to it. I have my Christmas sweater. It says, "For the creek to the beach, pieces within reach." So Merry Christmas, peace on earth, goodwill to everybody. Thank you.
What's your testimony? Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Gloria DeGrave. I'm also a commuter, so I live at 981 Grove Street in Neenah, Wisconsin. I lived in Green Bay for the majority of my life, about somewhere around 25 years of my life, and I still work here. And so I commute into the city somewhere between 4 and 6 days a week, sometimes 7. And I am here and a part of this community, and I don't have an older, so I'm going to speak for myself, but I strongly oppose the use of drones for surveillance or for even what it is currently designed in this particular proposal for, which is, monitoring for accidents and things like that. I understand that it can be frustrating when you get a false report and have to send somebody out to go check on something, and it turns out it was an iPhone glitch or something. And I can understand that that's frustrating, but it is really critical that we maintain a human touch here in Green Bay. Part of what makes Green Bay an amazing and beautiful place that I so hope that I can live in again is because of how much human touch we have here. And when we do things like outsource that touch to drones. I think it gets at the core of who Green Bay tries to value themselves to be. And so I oppose it for that reason. I also strongly oppose it because I do believe that if we start with something like traffic monitoring, I believe that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes on. And I don't want to be surveilled when I'm in this city. I want to feel like I'm at home. I don't want to be in a situation where I feel like I have to watch every single word I say anywhere in this city, because what if a drone is overhead? I don't want to worry about that. And I want to be able to be free to organize my community and to be present where I need to be present to do the job that I have. And I can't do that if I feel like I am constantly under watch and like somebody could be tracking my motions and where my car is at all times and gathering data on me and using it in whatever ways that they want to use it. Whether that's the actual Green Bay Police or if that's the company that services these drones. And, you know, we can talk about, sure, safety agreements and whatever else, but we know that those things get violated. I don't want anybody to even have the information so that they can violate it. I don't believe that we should be doing this, and I love this city too much not to say something, so I'm here tonight anyway. So that's what I have to say about it.
Anyone else?
Pete Borkart, 1524 Gatewood Street. I just want to second everything that everybody has said already on this. And I want to speak on a few things in particular. Number one, flock cameras in particular that we already have here. They don't even have two-factor authentication, folks. I just want to make sure everybody hears that. Now, if you're not familiar with two-factor authentication, that's when you say you sign in and you're like, hey, can you verify you have access to this email? Send in the code. That's basic security that every government agency, the police, have to use to get into their systems, except for a lot of the flock cameras out there. There are many documentaries and YouTube videos you can find on this, and they can actually show you how to hack them. They are currently hackable. They are running on Android versions that are outdated and no longer supported. So that's just the flock cameras. I understand we hear about the drones. I mean, we all grew up watching RoboCop, right? Watched it a few times on myself. And here we are voting to see if we want to back it up. I personally think that's dystopian right now. And I'm surprised we're sitting here talking about this right now. But here we are. I do understand the cost that we are hoping to reduce in sending out units on non-issues. I understand. I work at the zoo and I'm the campground host at the reforestation camp, so I work with the Swamico FD a lot, and that's one of their biggest calls. And I understand that because people leave their phones on top when they're leaving the zoo, get to the highway, whoop, it falls off. What if we look into something restricted areas where these calls are very prominent and have drones in those, like the Swamico fire station right there. Boom, right there. You can see where they accelerate off of there, it falls off the back. We know it's probably that. Send a drone. There's lots of other places out there leaving Lombardi going on to 41. So these high access areas where we get a lot of false 911 iPhone reports, let's maybe limit it down to that if we are going to vote for drones. I hope we don't. I hope that just stops right here. And just another thing, a lot of people know the name Palantir. Palantir is also backing the drone company and Flock as well. So one could make the leap that all this information, the data gathering from these drones and Flock cameras are probably getting fed right into Palantir systems. And I feel like we most all know. If we don't know, look into Palantir and their data. So let's be careful. And let's just hope, let's just not do this. That's all I got to say about that, and have a great night. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Anyone else on this item?
Hello, My name is Dalton Pansky. I'm a commuter from 510 Lincoln Street, Pulaski, Wisconsin. I am a nursing student at NWTC, and if this passes, I will feel less safe in the city. I think this sort of surveillance in the city is a complete overreach. As many have mentioned, their system, it can collect data, and that data is not secure, and I don't want that data in the wrong hands. And I think it has been shown that this company especially, it cannot be trusted with our data. So if this passes, I will feel less safe in the city. It is also an ineffective solution to the problems that have been addressed or being trying to be addressed with this system. If we want to have the police not need to go out to false reports of like an accident, having more investment in our infrastructure to keep them safer, to have better designed infrastructure to cause less accidents would be a better solution. If we wanted to have something like this address crime, spending that money to address poverty would be a better solution. This is just an ineffective use of money to try and solve the problems that are caused by not enough investment or not enough addressing of problems within our community. So this is not the way that the city should be spending their money, and I recommend that they do not pass this motion. Thank you.
Anyone else? Motion to close the floor. Motion to close the floor made by Alder DeLee, seconded by Alder Galvin. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. I think motion to approve made by Alder Galvin, seconded by Alder Hinkfist. Chief, if you just wanted to kind of explain exactly what we're doing here, because I think there's a fair amount of confusion about what the drones will be deployed for.
Yeah, clearly. And I'm not sure, I think there may be some representatives of Flock online who are available too for your questions. This is not a piece of surveillance technology. And drones generally, just in my experience, and I do actually have a little bit of experience with surveillance in pretty serious criminal matters. This would not be a very useful tool for surveillance because it can't stay in the air long enough. The intent behind this it goes back. Let me start with the history of how we got here with technology, because this is paired with an automated license plate reader. And some of our council members may have been here when we approved ALPR in the first place. Originally, the discussion was about gunshot detection. There was a lot of objection to that, and the council directed us to go back and do an analysis and see if there was other technology that might be more effective at a lower cost. And so we acquired ALPR technology from Flock a few years ago that has had a number of very good outcomes for us in terms of public safety. It has changed it's been a game changer when it comes to developing suspect information in criminal cases quickly. And, in one case, if I remember right, we had a shooting where by the time the suspects got home to the Milwaukee area, we knew who they were already, and the police were there waiting for them. Like any piece of technology that collects information, it can be misused. Either it would really have to be misused by our employees. I'm sure the representatives from Flock can speak to the security on their end and where the data goes. We would take that pretty seriously and would take major disciplinary action if one of our employees misused this equipment because it's an ethical issue. So the addition of the drone as first responder is intended to help us with a long-term problem that we have with staffing levels in the Green Bay Police Department. And we need to start looking at efficiency measures to use the limited sworn police resources that we have as efficiently as we can. I've heard for the 4 years that I've been here from members of our afternoon shift, and I can see from data that between about 10 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening on any given day, our officers are so busy answering dispatched calls for service, that there isn't time for work that we want to see done, like traffic safety work, community engagement, problem solving, because they're just going from call to call. But when you look at the kinds of calls that we go on, very often we are dispatched to things that we find out later the problem was gone long before the police got there, or it maybe didn't exist in the first place. So one use of this is to make more efficient use of our time. But the other really important contribution that this gives us is in terms of officer and community safety. When you, especially in an emergency as a police officer, when you're responding to a situation, your best friend is legitimate information about what's going on. And all of us who've done this work for any length of time know that you very rarely have that. And the more serious the emergency, the more often you are faced with incomplete, rapidly evolving, conflicting, or even erroneous information, because we're relying on someone on the telephone with dispatch to give us information about what's happening. Often we are relying on the person who is having the worst day of their life and is probably the least capable of giving us good, actionable, accurate information in the moment about what the problem is. And so to be able to launch a drone from the roof of a facility and get it to a location within a few minutes and have that asset on scene and being able to see what's happening and give real-time information to our responding officers, we don't need to speculate, because we know from the examples that we've seen in other cities that improves outcomes. I've heard of examples, and our vendors work with folks all over the country on this. I'm sure they could give you examples of situations where the initial information is that somebody's armed with a firearm. So now we have police at one intensity level headed to this call, and it turns out there isn't a firearm involved at all. It would be good for us to know that there isn't a weapon involved in a call when one is reported. Very often, that's what you find out when you get there, or you don't know that a weapon is involved until you get there. If we know that there's a weapon in that situation, we can calibrate our response in a way that is more likely to get the outcome we all want, where we resolve that situation where no one gets hurt. I am certainly, I'll go right on the record and say I'm definitely concerned about the privacy impacts and the privacy interests that are at stake with some of the surveillance technology that's available. That's why we have enacted policies in the Green Bay Police Department, and will continue to have those policies that make sure that there are safeguards in place. And ultimately, everything that we do is overseen by the criminal courts. In order for us to get a conviction in a criminal case, we have to be able to show that any evidence that we use was obtained legally. And so that's where your ultimate safeguard is and should be in our justice system, is with the courts. And the last thing I want to talk about is just the idea that this is a random surveillance tool. That's not what it's for. The only way that this will be launched off the roof of the building is if there is a call for service. We know, and one of the things that appealed to me from a privacy standpoint about this system is that the default setting is for the camera to be pointed at the horizon once it takes off, because we're really not interested in just random things that we might find on the way to a call. What we're interested in is getting that asset in place so we can get situational awareness in an emergency, and ultimately see some benefits in terms of public safety and the safety of our employees. And so happy to answer any questions that you all have. And I see that Ryan Mertz from Flock Safety is online, who can help, can do a much better job than I can at explaining the technology.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, Chief, not anything to add from fire?
Sure. Drone as a first responder, we see as a valuable tool for us. We've been using drones very effectively to provide situational awareness to our personnel operating at emergency scenes for many years now. We've seen that program expand and evolve. We've also realized tremendous benefits of a drone as a first responder program. We use this very effectively.
Maybe
Oh,
just
I'm
lean
sorry.
in a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. But we've also used drone as a first responder very effectively in our community during large scale events. We use them to specifically when during the NFL draft, we had multiple incidents and multiple events going out throughout the city. We use drones very effectively to provide a quick overview of what is actually occurring. We use them to locate and quickly identify a fire in a tent during the draft footprint, and then also a person that was in the river during the downtown concerts. We were able to quickly get eyes on that situation. So we've seen tremendous benefit of this. Again, our use would be to identify, quickly respond to an incident, and make sure we're setting appropriate resources. And we would see if a car, maybe it's dispatched as a car fire or a structure fire, and we see something different. Because again, as we're responding, we'd be able to get good situational awareness, just like Chief Davis said, that same concept, to be able to get eyes on this and really understand what's going on to make sure our personnel are set up for success. We see this as a safety tool for us. We understand the privacy concerns, and that is truly not what we're intending. I mean, our intention is truly to provide situational awareness to our personnel, be able to quickly respond and make sure we're setting appropriate resources to mitigate whatever emergency we're responding to.
Thanks, Chief. Questions from alders, and then if there's an interest, we can go online. Alder Prophet.
I'll first ask both chiefs, and then I do have questions for the folks online. Thank you to both of you. I believe we have drones, right? Don't quote me, but I think we got to see a pretty cool one from the fire department, at least on our day that we spent with you all last year. How many drones do we currently have between the two departments?
And again, we have like 2 primary response drones that we use. We also have some additional drones that we use for training purposes.
Okay, so 2 from fire. Is there any within our PD currently?
Yes.
Okay.
All of our drones right now are assigned to our SWAT team. We have 2 kinds. We have one that can be used outdoors, and then we have much smaller ones that can be sent in to structure, which is a lot safer than sending people into it in some of those calls.
Okay. Thank you both.
But I would say there is a very big difference
Yep.
between those and what we're talking about here.
Yeah, for sure. I know someone mentioned the river incident, and I know near my house, I live very close to the East River, and I saw one get deployed for a different incident. So I thought we had some in-house. I know they're much different uses, but just wanted to clarify that.
And in our current drones, we'd still be utilizing 2. Again, this is additional, just initial on-scene access, and then we would fly more of our drones on scene as things would develop.
Alder Hutchison.
This proposal is asking for how many drones? I mean, and where would they be stationed?
So this would be for 2, one on each side of the river, and we haven't completely nailed down the locations yet, but the idea is to place them so that they cover the greatest call volume in the city. If you get outside the freeways, kind of on either side of the city, the
Okay.
call volume goes down a lot. So it would try to cover inside that area.
Okay, thank you. And there would be an officer assigned to each one who's working during the day with that drone to respond immediately, right?
We would probably have one officer assigned to both and fly one at a time.
Gotcha.
If you use one, then it's got to come back and recharge itself, and that takes some time. We right now, and one of the reasons why we only wanted to look at 2 installations for now is we can't really afford to tie up a whole lot of people with this.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Other questions? Alder Presley.
Question for Chief Davis, a couple of questions, and I appreciate you answering some questions over email as well. But so there's in the packet, there's a listed $240,000 of ROI, return on investment. Can you explain what the mechanism is for having a return on this investment?
So this is a Flock document, and their estimate based on a review that they did, and I'm sure they could speak in more detail to this. of our calls for service over the year-long period. Based on the types of calls that these are normally used for, it estimates how many calls for service would be eligible, and then how much officer time that could save from the various ways in which this saves us time.
So officers could ostensibly be spending time on other calls because of the drone being deployed instead of them?
That is the theory that is presented here, yes.
Okay. And then are there any activities that are precluded from the drone being deployed to them, like protected activities? Somebody mentioned protests or religious.
Yeah, and that's where we have a practice right now, and we're undergoing a ongoing, very large scale revision of all of our policies. But our current policy is that for any kind of First Amendment protected activity, we're not going to record whatever's happening there. These wouldn't be used for that. Where we use drones already and for like a demonstration, and a lot of our organizers here know that we do this, is to look for threats to the demonstration, frankly, on rooftops and in places where it's impractical to get people to. But we have a rule, and this is something that I brought from my previous experience in that environment, that we're not going to record people exercising their First Amendment rights. The only time we'll turn the recording on is when there's criminal activity, which has never happened in the times that we've used it.
Okay. Appreciate that. And then does the Flock company, what sort of access would they have to data that is recorded on their devices in our city?
They really shouldn't have any because the data belongs to us under the agreement, so it's not theirs to look at. For like video recording, I can let them speak to that more, but I know they do keep some like not what's the word I'm looking for, anonymized like system performance data, but they could probably give more detail about that.
Okay, just a couple more questions. I'm sorry.
Sure.
So
Good question.
With retention of the footage, do we have an existing policy for that would, if we approve these drones now, would already be in effect?
We do. We would use the same rules that we use for body worn and in-car camera footage, because if you have to preserve footage, obviously, if it has captured evidence of a crime, or if there is a use of force that we do supervisory review of all of our uses of force. If there is an administrative investigation, maybe related to a complaint that comes out of the incident, you would want to save all that, which is distinct from our license plate reader data that we have deleted after 30 days.
Okay. And then, I know this has more to do with our placed Flock cameras, but let's say a federal agency comes in and they say that they want a list of people going to and from a mosque or something like that. Do we have a policy that says, no, we're not going to provide that? Are we required to? Do they need a warrant? Like what existing policy do we have?
And I'd have to go back and refresh my recollection as to specifically what our license plate reader policy says about that. For something like that, I'm going to have a hard time granting that request. There's a federal law that says that we cannot legally, as a city, prohibit our employees from like cooperating with, say, immigration enforcement. Before I'm going to let a request like that go out the door, though, I want to talk to whoever the head of that agency is, and because that would sound like something that would be unconstitutional. I don't want to violate the law.
Right. Okay, last question. If we purchase this, if we approve this now, what is the timeline from us purchasing to deploying?
That's another question I would refer to the folks from Flock. I think they'd probably be a lot more on point on that.
You're specifically asking about the drone element of it?
Yeah.
Alder Presley?
Yeah.
Okay.
The ALPRs are already deployed and have been for the last 3 years.
Okay, thank you. That is all my questions. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Any other questions for either of our chiefs? And then we could go online if. Motion to open the floor made by Alder Prophet and seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. If you'd like to just state your name and address and then begin speaking for our online guests, now would be the time.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. My name's Quinn. I live in New London, so 1813 Oshkosh Street in New London. But I, like one of the other people from here, I go to NWTC, so I'm, probably 2-3 times a week I'm in Green Bay in the area, on campus in the surrounding areas. So I know I'm not technically a resident, but I did just want to ask some questions and speak to this because it is kind of concerning to me, the idea that, like I understand what they are proposed to be doing with the drones and the license plate readers. However, the Flock Group Incorporated agreement does not benefit Green Bay residents or Wisconsin civilians, in my opinion. Flock Group Inc. has been known to be used illegally by law enforcement officers and ICE agents to surveil and target people of color, immigrants, Latinx folks, and non-native English speakers. These AI-powered cameras have been used deliberately to make unlawful arrests based on prejudice and detain working-class members of our communities. There are plenty of articles out there if you just do a simple Google search. Also, I wanted to second what people were saying earlier. There is no two-factor authentication on these drones. There is no security measures in place. It does run on a old Android system that is no longer, compatible in receiving updates. Beyond just concerning the use of what these would actually be used for, besides, what they're supposedly going to be used for, I'm worried about how people might have access to them, and they could be used for surveillance against people in our communities because of their lack of security and the fact that, like other people were saying, if you go on YouTube, there's a popular video, because I was doing research into this, that says that, this popular YouTuber hacked a bunch of Flock cameras all over the country in 30 seconds. And he didn't release the information about how to do that, but that information is out there and it's publicly available and it's on YouTube. And I'm just saying, maybe the police wouldn't be using this for nefarious purposes, but there are bad actors out there, and to use the resources instead of an officer being out there and having a human connection in the field with the data, to be sitting behind a drone and driving a drone. And, that just seems kind of silly to me. I hate to say it.
Appreciate your testimony. 3 minutes have expired. Next up. Anyone from Flock?
Yes, thank you. So Ryan Mertz, 9808 Madison Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri. I just wanted to quickly introduce our head of DFR Consulting, Fritz Reber, who's been involved in these programs really since their inception several years back, and he can definitely speak on some of the use cases that we've seen around the country. I think we're up to 80 to 90 deployments in different cities around the country. Fritz, if you don't mind, that would be super helpful.
Sure, I'm happy to answer questions. My name is Fritz Reber. I'm Director of DFR Consulting for Flock Safety. Been with the company for a couple of years. My background is actually law enforcement. I'm a retired captain out of the Chula Vista Police Department, where I spearheaded the very first DFR program back in 2018. And so I've been very involved with the DFR for the last 6-7 years. And as Ryan mentioned, now we're up to several hundred of agencies doing DFR. It's hard to say more than the chief said. They explained the use case, the value exceptionally well. I just know, there are many, many lives, many, many people alive today specifically because of DFR and the way the drones were deployed in terms of getting there before ground units, getting intelligence, giving police officers and firefighters and EMS basically a peek at the future and understanding what they're going into. And it's a big safety enhancement as well as a resource management tool. So don't want to spend too much time reinforcing what they already said, but I'm here to answer questions if needed.
Yep, and just to add a little color to that, if I may, everything that we do at Flock is fully audit logged and tracked, so that we have transparency portals on the LPR side, same with the DFR program. So all citizens can access that, see flight logs, really see everything that we're doing. And then I'm also happy to speak to any of the security claims and some of the misinformation out there around our security standards. So the media that, the YouTube video that has been addressed, essentially what happened in that video is there was a Flock hardware or LPR camera that was a factory setting device. So imagine your iPhone coming from the Apple manufacturer, where basically zero security software was installed on that device. And we have never been hacked up to this date. So happy to speak to any specific questions on some of those comments that were made as well.
All right. Any questions from council for Flock? Yeah, Alder Prophet.
I apologize in advance, but I do have a list, and I appreciate. It seems like you have quite the team that zoomed in and joined us tonight, so I do appreciate that, because hopefully after my list, I'll have a lot of answers cleared up for me. So in our packet, the DFR impact analysis, slide 9, there was a competitor comparison. Could you maybe just walk through for me your 2 launch locations, your 2 docks for your cost versus where you gathered competitor data from?
Sure. We have our subject matter expert, Andy Abels, on the call. Andy, could you chime in on the deployment for Green Bay?
Yeah, absolutely. Andy Abels, DFR Solutions Specialist, 533 East Irish Avenue, remotely in Colorado. So the site location, as far as our impact analysis, goes down to the efficiency of the aircraft that we fly. The aircraft that we flies at a faster rate and has a longer battery capacity. So because of that, on average, the coverage area is 3.5 miles per launch location. For our competitors, by market standards and how they present the product, it is a 2-mile radius per dock. And they require additional docks due to the lower performance on battery charging and performance. So they need more docks to cover that same area. So it's typically a 3-to-1 ratio for one of their docks to one of ours.
Okay, perfect. That clears that up and kind of naturally leads into my next question. So the time to charge. So I think I had gathered that it was a 50-minute flight time before it needs to charge. How long does it then take to charge at the station?
Yeah, it depends on, it's weather dependent. Obviously the elements are going to affect it, but typically it's a 40 to 45 minute flight time with a 25-minute flight time, or recharge time. So the ratio is better. With our competitors, typically it's a 15 to 20-minute flight time with a 40-minute charge time.
Okay. Thank you. And you mentioned weather. Is it able to fly at night? That might be a silly question, but it's on my list.
Correct. Yes. It also has the ability to see and fly at night. Yes.
Okay, perfect. The multi-factor authentication was brought up. I I work for an extremely large healthcare organization in which I have to not only do Duo Mobile, but I also have to go to Microsoft Authenticator probably 50 times a day, I swear. So could you maybe speak to the security setup? You had addressed the YouTube video, so it sounds like that was someone who just maybe purchased one and there was no security whatsoever. What do you put on the packages, and is there a multi-factor authentication that's set up on the ones that are then sent if the contract's executed?
Yeah, there is a multi-factor authentication available, and we are SOC 2, Type 2, and 3 certified, and CGIS certified as well too, from a security standpoint.
Okay. And then my last question, just because it was brought up, and I think there's a few state or maybe federal representatives who have asked for an FTC investigation. Could you maybe speak to, it might be a sensitive subject, but the conversation surrounding the 35 accounts that customers indicated had been hacked and stolen? You said you haven't been hacked to date, so maybe you could clear that up for me.
Ryan, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so it's categorically false. We have never been hacked. I can get you more detailed information on that specific case, but just to add to the multi-factor, that was made default late last year, and I think we're in the 80% range or higher for all of our law enforcement agencies use multi-factor.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Other questions from council? Yeah, Alder Presley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just what I asked the chief as well. What access to data does the Flock organization have compared to what the city has?
So Chief spoke very well how that's structured. We don't have any access to the footage. It's all your data. Really, it's just like simple metrics and performance metrics like you would have on your iPhone.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, Alder Hutchison.
Okay, it's our data, but do you have access to it?
Go ahead.
If there's a videotape or if there's any data on the drones, do you have access that you can access without letting the city know?
I'll have to get more detailed answers for you on that. We do not access the video footage or any data that is specific to the flights or anything like that.
Okay, I guess it's a specific question. Can you, though? I mean, can you literally do it? I'm not asking you if you do, but can you?
I'll have to get someone on our team to follow up with you on that specific question on how that's, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, entertain them. Oh, yeah, we can close the floor. Motion to close the floor made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Presley. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. The ayes have it. The floor is closed. Alder Galvin for Chief Davis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief Davis, just to clarify this, I call in a call that qualifies for drone deployment. That drone can be deployed by someone at the 911 center?
No, it would be deployed by one of our employees. And
so would it be a specific person like the drone officer? And then that he doesn't fly it there. It literally flies to that address on its own, doesn't it?
essentially, yes. We would have to train up people to be qualified to operate these. And then the drone uses GPS coordinates to get to the location. And then from there, the operator can take it over if they need to move it, or they can move the camera.
Sure.
But in order to move the camera, like on its way there, the default setting for the camera is the horizon,
Correct.
unless the operator changes it for some reason.
All right. So then once he's there, he can do what he needs to do to help determine what's actually happening at the scene.
Yeah, he or she.
And when he's done, he can hit a button and it goes back to the base automatically. Same thing with the camera up on the horizon.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? We have a motion and a second. Oh, Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate the conversation around this topic. And I think it really comes from a good place, from an abundance of safety and precaution. However, I do think at the committee level, we really talked about a number of these things as well. And I felt pretty confident afterwards. Generally speaking, I'm not one of those people who favors surveillance. And I certainly agree that in some instances they're being used for surveillance and targeting, but that's because it's intended to be used for that. And I think our police chief here has made it very clear that our policy does not use it for that purpose and that there are protocols in place to prohibit it. So I think in the case of the city of Green Bay, we learned earlier today, 500 databases of information. I suspect some of that is HIPAA and many other forms of data that to me I personally would be more concerned about that than a piece of surveillance that shows me walking across a sidewalk doing lawful things. And I think the reality is the tools have evolved. Our police department and our fire department have evolved beyond axes and billy clubs, and they're using a lot of technology that not only keeps our personnel safe, it keeps them more efficient. It allows, I think, more of that human touch and that connection by using technology to eliminate the waste that currently occurs. And I want to make sure that we're coming at this from a perspective of logic and really recognizing that while the fear can certainly be appreciated and real, I think some of the things that are worth fearing are not being deployed in this particular situation. It's to me, it's a little bit like asking a poet to write a poem with a hammer and a chisel when there are tools that have certainly evolved and do better. Though certainly parchment and a feather pen might be kind of nice, but so at the committee level, I would say, I felt very comfortable in terms of the way it's being used, the way it's being deployed. Drones are used in a variety of industries, whether you're talking about photography, photos, precision farming, mapping. They're used across the board. And of course, as our fire chief had said, they've been using it for years. And we've never had this conversation before. So I just want to make sure that we're really focused on the right things, which is not being used for surveillance. It's not being used for monitoring. It's not being used for targeting. There are disciplinary actions in place to address that if that were ever to occur. We're not Gaza. We're not, some of these other places where certainly, again, those would be very terrifying things to think about. And we're very fortunate that we live in a place where we don't have to contemplate that. I can't even imagine these things are capable of delivering a pizza, let alone some of the, the things that are really happening in some of these other countries that are very unfortunate and scary. So I support it for that reason. The only thing that I had sort of raised a concern around at the committee level was the price, because that is levy supported. But we support tools and resources all the time for our different departments. And 1.3 million has been talked about. I want to be clear that we're talking about a much smaller number on an annual basis. That's the total value of the contract over 5 years. And Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but we already have a contract in place for the license plate readers. So really what we're talking about here is either an extension of that contract or an upgrade. So what is the difference, I guess, what we've already deployed, which I would refer to as a sunk cost, relative to the service that we're adding?
So we would also be renewing the agreement for the automated license plate reader, and I believe the delta between that and adding the drone is $170,000 a year for the entire life of the contract.
Okay, so 170,000 divided by 5.
170,000 times 5. It's $170,000.
Oh, sorry.
A year.
So I thought you were implying
For
170
the
for
drone
the
as first
Okay, so
responder.
170 per year to add the drones.
Correct.
And so to me, that, at least, again, I'm satisfied with really a lot of great questions, a lot of great points from the public. I'm satisfied with the responses to that. I think if there's any really debate from this body, it should probably focus around if we think that 170,000 is the wisest use of resources given the demands placed in our department. I personally think it's a good investment given the safety, the elimination of the inefficiency, even of the false calls. And of course, I look at that and say, if we're eliminating that, our personnel is freed up to do the other things that a lot of folks have said we should do, like the community policing and the soft touches. And that's where I'd really love to see our personnel spending their time rather than in a car driving from, one site to the next where they didn't really need to go. So,
Thanks, Alder.
Thank
Alder
you.
Morgan, and then Hutchison.
In my 3.5 years as an alderman, the biggest complaint I've always had is traffic issues. And as the chief said, there just aren't enough officers to handle the calls right now. So we've got a tool here that may free officers up that can actually do what we used to call selective enforcement, which means that people will see people out working more radar and catching these hot rodders or their dirt bikers doing their wheelies and stuff. So we're going to answer some of our citizens' complaints by simply not putting more salary into more officers. I don't think we could hire 2 officers for that price, train them, pay their benefits and everything like that, and that wouldn't solve a lot of problems. As far as the safety of our officers, in my years, I remember watching officers walk into bank alarms, and they got so many there, they'd carry a walkie-talkie in one hand and a clipboard in the other, and not even care. They should have their hand on a gun. There might be a robbery going on. Well, with these things, we'd be able to see things that you don't know before you get on a call. And as far as the plate readers, everyone in the city I talked to thinks they could get a ticket from that. There's a law in the state of Wisconsin. You cannot issue tickets from plate readers. So you don't have to worry about that. And then you talk about the people that are afraid that they're going to be surveilled on. We've got proof here. The chief and our staff is going to make sure it's not for surveillance of the people. When I ran for sheriff many years, one of my biggest mantras was, if you can't do the time, don't commit the crime. So I think people, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have to worry if they pick up on something while they're actually just trying to protect themselves. And that's all I have to say. I'm for it.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Hutchison, then Prophet.
Thank you. I agree with you, Alder, with the freeing up police officers to a lot of drag racing apparently across the city, especially on the east side where we got some straight roads. And I think this is a way to help address that. I have complete faith in our chiefs, the fire chief, police chief, complete and utter faith in those individuals. The one thing I don't have complete faith in is a vendor. And the response I got, could they videotape from those and get the video without contacting us, the city? I would appreciate something more than an offer to get back to me. I would like something in writing addressed to the mayor that would either say they will not do that or they can't do it, but they will only do it under certain circumstances to prevent the occurrence where video is taken inside our city limits and used without our permission. Otherwise, 100% behind it. Okay, so I don't know what vehicle we can use to get that. I don't want to blanket approve this without having that communicate from the vendor. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Prophet, then Grant.
So I had a miserable event, a half a block, not around the corner from my house yesterday, in which the police response for hours was, felt like half the department. So I saw it firsthand. I'm like, oh, how timely. And I've seen it in the past in which there's an unfortunate incident that requires a lot of staff from PD, from fire. And it's unfortunate, but it happens. I can't, in good faith, vote in favor of this tonight solely based on the vendor. That non-response, not only once but twice, about if they are able to access it, is a no for me. And I know that there are potentially other vendors out there. I know the cost might be more expensive, but are there some that can drones that can bring along life preservers for the person that fell in the river. Not only the one by downtown, but there's the East River near my house that some folks occasionally stumble away from the bar and, you know, have some incidents. And I know because I've seen it. I've seen the drone respond to my neighborhood. So that's where I'm at with this tonight. I can see the benefit and I can understand, again, because there was a miserable incident around the block from my house yesterday in which I saw caution tape. I saw the work that those officers were providing that drones will never replace. They will never replace that work. But it is the company. My no vote tonight is solely on the company. Could we hold it and get more answers? Perhaps, but I still can't promise that I wouldn't have concerns. I've had a lot of folks reach out, not just ones in attendance tonight, expressing deep concerns just about this company. So that's my no this evening for this.
Thanks, Alder. Grantham Presley.
I just have one more question for Chief Davis that I just thought of. I know we've talked about, I have a lot of speeding issues in my area on Huron with motorcycles, and we've talked about the liability of pursuing a high-speed chase over a traffic violation. We talked about strategies that you wanted to implement, but we could not do it with air surveillance. Is it possible that if an officer is going after a motorcycle and it takes off, could we deploy this drone? Like, because you've said we try to wait then for them to pull over, park or something, and then we can citation them. Is this something we could implement for that problem?
Probably not, because it doesn't fly fast enough. I think it's the speed tops out at like 50 miles an hour, and you know, usually when motorcycles take off from us, it's more like 100.
Okay. All right. I didn't know with it being able to see a wider area that we could, yes, the speed isn't there, but we could, as long as they stayed in an area that was close, that we could see where they went. So that was my only question. Thank you.
I did just have one, you know, if it helps with the question of the vendor's access to footage, I wonder if that would be a violation of our contract.
Attorney Kulchak, do you want to take a look at that for a bit, or do you have an answer?
I'll just add that I think the language is in there that clarifies access, but on this question of whether it's possible, we could specifically add a provision in there about that, and submit that to Flock for their consideration. That's not a problem. We have a very lengthy agreement and a lot of language about authorized users access, and also logs that track when the system was accessed.
Thank you. Presley, then Galvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm conflicted on this because I do see the value. I've read articles about this being used where somebody reports a carjacking and then the drone comes out there and it's actually just somebody trying to get into their own car, and they fly right back and we don't have to worry about dispatching a police officer to deal with that, and they can go do those soft touches like Alder Johnson said, the community policing, the things that they should be doing to help the community. I absolutely see the value in that. I absolutely believe in the chief and the department's intention behind this. My concern is just the policies, the policy both with our agreement with Flock. Are they able to capture, or not to capture, but to view the data we have? Are they able to share that data also within our own organization? If some external body wants access to this data, what are the parameters in which we would give access to either the license plates or the actual footage? And without that, I mean, regardless of where this vote lands, I want to have continued conversations, because if we vote this down, we're still going to have Flock cameras, and we're still going to have concerns from that. And I want to have conversations about our policies and see where we can shore it up to make sure that there's a benefit for the police department, but also a sense of security for my neighbors. But I think tonight I'm going to be a no on it for the same reason that Alder Profit is. Just a little bit of insecurity about the policy right now.
Just a point of clarification, given the timing and the length of the contract that we're under currently with Flock for the ALPR, if this is voted down, the cameras would not be in place as of January 1st. So Galvin, then Johnson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would imagine, and I think Attorney Lacey already said that we could put something into the contract that would probably reassure people that that access could be denied unless they come to us first. I mean, look, at people can always get warrants to come in and access that information. I mean, we can't say no, never, ever. That's not going to happen. It can happen legally. And I think we can cover ourselves to that situation by looking at the contract and working something out with Flock. On another note, there's a lot that goes on here that we haven't covered. I mean, it's been 11 years since I crawled into a black and white car, but I can tell you that it's absolutely terrifying when you're running through a backyard in the middle of the night chasing a suspect and you catch him and you can't get on the radio or you can't communicate where you're at. And I think about the amount of times that happens day in and day out to officers, not only in Green Bay, but throughout Wisconsin and the United States. I think of the number of times that we found out later on someone with a gun was watching us and we never knew it. I think that a significant amount of officers are killed every year responding to calls, killed in their squad cars because of traffic crashes, a significant amount of them. And if we can save one officer because we use this system, it's well worth it. And you can't even add up what the savings is then. I know for sure, I just read in the paper, Flock was able to help us to apprehend a driver in a hit and run accident on Belp Avenue where two people were critically injured. There's two cars chasing each other and one of them smashed into an innocent car going the other way. One took off. Because of Flock, we were able to track that person down and place him in custody. Personally, I had a family member that was at risk, called the police department. Within 2 hours, they were able to find him because of Flock. Instead of days, it was 2 hours, and we were able to ascertain, that he was okay and we could stand down. There's a lot here that we can do with this that hasn't even really been scratched yet. And so I'm going to vote in favor of it because I also believe that we will be able to work out an agreement with Flock to make everyone confident that this data is going to be secure on our end and on their end. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to thank Alder Hutchinson for kind of raising this point, and Chief, you alluded to it as well. But I'm going to maybe formalize it as an amendment that would make a motion to offer an amendment that the approval is contingent on Law Department's review of the contract, that the data is secured by us, which includes the visual of the log and whether an outside party has accessed, and that if that is violated, it would lead to a breach of contract and the ability for us to terminate the contract. So it's really just to ensure that our legal department can work on the language and the finessing of how that needs to look. But I think to me, it would give us the protection that we're looking for. I don't know why Flock would object to that if they're not using the data. So it seems like a pretty benign amendment, but I think hopefully it will give us the protection that a lot of folks are really wanting to see.
Is there a second for that? Seconded by Alder Eck. Attorney Kochart, is that workable as stated?
Absolutely. I think I got most of that down. But absolutely, we are working on amendments or changes now, and we can incorporate that in the process. Yeah.
Comments on the amendment?
One more thing, Mayor.
Yeah, Alder Johnson.
Just about whether the amendment passes, but the thing as a whole. So, I mean, we obviously, unfortunately, live in an age of a lot of misinformation. I did a quick search on, Flock and some of these claims, and actually, the most common search result I got was accusations that were proven to be unfounded. So, if we have a consistent pattern of behavior that has evidence and is demonstrated with facts, I might approach this differently, but given the sensitivity of the subject, and I know how much people are passionate about it and oppose it, I just fear it's even more ripe and subject to misinformation. So based on recommendation of the chief and what we heard, and of course my trust and faith in our attorney to get the right language in there to protect our residents, not only will I support the amendment, but I would support the motion as well.
Thanks, Alder. Any additional comments on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The amendment is successful. Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve is amended.
Motion to approve is amended made by Alder Johnson and seconded by Alder Galvin. Discussion on the amended motion. Seeing none, all in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved as amended. Park Committee. Motion to approve made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder DeLee. Items here to be handled separately. Hearing none, all in favor will say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That report has been approved. Report of the Water Utility Commission. Motion to approve made by Alder Stevens, seconded by Alder Eck. Discussion here. Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, you never come to these and you really sat through this. So I just at least want to give you a minute if you want to, comment on this since you've stood strong there.
Sure. Thanks for my minute of glory.
Or however long you want.
Yeah. But we're entering into an agreement with the Village of Pulaski to wholesale sell water to them. We currently have 4 other wholesale communities that we sell water to: the Village of Ashwaubenon since 2005, Village of Hobart since 2010, Village of Wrightstown since 2015, and now it'll be the Village of Pulaski starting hopefully by the end of summer of 2026. With that being said, we will generate roughly a little over $300,000 a year by selling water to Pulaski. It'll be for everything. This agreement's for 20 years, but once the agreement's over, then the PSC sets the rates and they will continue to be a customer of ours. So it's a big win for us. Obviously, it's our 5th community with only more to come. Obviously, even Pulaski has signed a memorandum of understanding with the town of Pittsfield to provide them water. So Pittsfield right now doesn't have a water system because they're just small and spread out and they're on private wells. But as Pittsfield grows, they would become a customer of ours too at some point. So,
Thank you. And I didn't want us to just fly by this without maybe recognizing the significance of this achievement. So thank you for the work that you and your department do. Of course, the big win for City of Green Bay residents is when you have higher volumes, you stabilize, our water rates and creates a little less volatility. So thank you for the hard work on doing that.
yeah, thank you. And you make a very good point, Alder Johnson, is with our 4 wholesale communities and adding Pittsfield, that'll be about 4.5 million gallons of water a day that we sell to our wholesale customers. And the Green Bay customers right now, we sell about 14 million gallons. So hence that's a big percentage of water sales to our wholesale customers, which stabilizes rates to everybody.
That's great. Alder Prophet.
Director Powell, if I could just ask, because I think I've asked this in the past and I like the answer, how much capacity do we have to continue to partner with other municipalities in terms of the water supply?
Yes, excellent question. Our capacity is 42 MGD. We have at our filter plant is our bottleneck. And right now our max day is 28 million gallons. So we have an additional 14 million gallons to provide to other communities.
Awesome. Thank you. So shameless plug to other surrounding municipalities. Come get some of the best water from GB Water.
Right. And you don't have to answer this, but how much cheaper is our water in comparison to central Brown County?
Yes, our rates are $2.98 per 1,000 gallons to our wholesale customers, all of them. We have the same rate to every wholesale customer. We don't change the rate to different customers. It stays the same. And I believe right now the Central Brown County Water Authority is somewhere near $5 per 1,000 gallons to their members.
That is quite a difference. Well, thanks to you and the staff for all the work on the agreement. It's a great thing for the water utility.
All right, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that item has been approved. Informational, we've got a building report in the packet for November 2025. Resolutions. Motion to suspend the rules and take up these items with one roll call vote made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder DeLee. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended. Motion to adopt made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Galvin. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll use the board. All right, so those resolutions are adopted unanimously. Ordinances first reading. I think there was a request by staff for a first and final on 6. 1 and 6. All right, do we want to? Yeah, maybe. Suspend the rules on 2. Yeah. Alder Johnson makes a motion to suspend the rules on 2 through 4. Seconded by Alder Presley. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended. And Alder Johnson makes a motion to advance on 2 through 4. Seconded by Alder Eck. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Items 2 through 4 have been advanced to a second and final reading onto 1.
Motion to suspend the rules for 1 and 6 to take up with first and final reading with 1 vote.
Alder Johnson makes a motion to suspend the rules to take up 1 and 6 at the same time and to advance or to approve with a first and final reading.
Just a point of clarification.
Yeah, Alder Johnson.
For Director Renier Wig, is it presumed that the amendment that was made on the committee report would carry through to the ordinance related to the recommendations that staff was making? Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Prophet. Discussion on 1 and 6. Seeing none, all in favor will say aye. Oh, sorry, we have to use the board, right? Because that's
Those the rules,
yeah. Sorry. All right. Who made the motion? Sorry. Motion to adopt made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Presley on 1 and 6. Any discussion? Now we'll use the board. All right, those are adopted unanimously. On to 5. Motion to advance made by Alder Presley, seconded by Alder Prophet. Discussion here. Alder Eck.
I just wanted clarification. I kind of went through fast before, and I know there was a little bit of a disagreement on if it was the 2 to 2 that it reverts, it goes through without being.
We did take it separately after that discussion.
Yeah, but I just wanted to clarify on this one.
What's that? Yes, this would be to advance the change made.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Other discussion? Yeah. Oh, sorry, Alder Grant.
Thank you, Mayor. At the committee level, I did ask, what efforts were done to fill the vacancies, and the chair did say that that's not the issue, that they have people interested. So I think I'm a little hesitant to reduce the seats when we have people interested in serving in the commission. So I think I'm a little confused as to what the goal is, and I don't want to turn people away if we have people interested. So that's my thought on that.
Okay, thanks. Alder Hutchison.
Okay, the motion is the desire of the committee and staff is to go from 9 chairs to 7. This will bring it in league with most of the commissions that we have. 9 is kind of a high number. And for the last 4 years, it's been kind of difficult to have a quorum for the Equal Rights Commission. When I was part of the Equal Rights Commission 2 years ago, we had a meeting or two that we didn't hold because there was not a quorum. And I think bringing it down to 7, which is the same number of Plan Commission, we've had times with the Plan Commission where we barely held the meeting because we had a quorum, just barely. Okay, so the fact that 9 commissioners are not meeting to meet a quorum isn't something that needs to be drastically looked at. It's just hard to do. So I'm totally in favor of taking the recommendation of the commission and the people with who are associated with the commission that want to go from 9 to 7 commissioners, I think it makes a ton of sense that allows them to meet more frequently and get work done. And I think if we want to look at adding to that after we make the change, that would be great. But I think to just let them in this quandary is not the thing to do. I think we should let them go from 9 to 7 seats. So I will vote for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Any other comments, Alder Johnson?
Just a question for legal. I mean, quorum would be, is there a minimum number of people, or is quorum simply the majority of folks that are present, or is it a majority of the commission members?
Yeah, it's the majority of members. So for the Equal Rights Commission right now, they need 5 to have a meeting. For 7, it's 4.
Okay, so 5 members to conduct a meeting right now. And well, certainly I think a lot of the work that this commission has been doing is focused around, obviously, a number of the topics that have come here. You know, one of the things for this commission that, in terms of why this was created, was to address complaints related to, forgive me, the violations around, if there was a complaint filed, right, for a violation around,
Discrimination.
yeah, discrimination. Thank you. And so from that perspective, that's why I'm more comfortable with the 5 in a way, right? Meaning that you'd have to have a minimum of 5 present, whereas with 7, you only have 4 present. I just feel more comfortable in those situations having that decision, I guess, diluted a little bit more. So now that said, I was actually surprised that the alder didn't have voting privileges. So that piece I certainly support. And I'm kind of curious if you give the alder that voting privileges, are they currently calculated in that quorum, and are they part of that 9, or are they just treated separately?
Question for Attorney Kochar.
So quorum is just to determine whether a meeting can be held, and then in terms of voting, it's the members present. So if you have a quorum, which is 5, and then the majority to pass something for the most part would be 3 of those 5. So it's not all 5, if that's part of the question that you're asking. And I'm not positive on the change for the alder voting. We have other commissions that have non-voting alders. So if that's something we'd want to look at, I would say we'd have to do some additional research about whether that changes, because it's the case for others.
And that's where I think I would certainly love to have that discussion around like all commissions, if it makes sense or not to have a blanket policy where alders appointed to commissions have a vote, regardless of which commission it is. But that's obviously not what's before us today. So,
And Alder Stevens and I were having a silent conversation, but the Water Commission is also non-voting for the alder, but that could be a state statute thing. I'm not sure exactly.
Yes, the Water Commission commissioner appointments and the appointment of the mayor is in state's law in chapter 62, I think. But don't quote me on it. But yeah, definitely a state law.
Thanks. Alder Prophet.
Oh,
Alder Presley.
In regards to hearing complaints, that was something that we brought forward as a potential ordinance change so that we could hear complaints. That was in a large document that we held for more discussion, and then this body received and placed on file, so that's not really a consideration here. This body said, no, we don't want you to hear complaints.
Thanks. Alder Morgan.
I voted against this at Protection and Policy because, to me, equal rights should represent a smorgasbord of people, and that's what we have in Green Bay. I remember talking to Alder Ritterbush. He was telling me how many different languages his company alone has to be able to communicate with, and I mean, it was 19, something like that, and 16. So, to me, it's just going against what we should be looking for, more representation of the public, which is our Green Bay citizens. And also, we've been told there are people who want to be on this board. Alder Presley has someone that he thinks would be good for the board. There's another one that applied. So to me, I'm still against reducing it. I think we should expand it to include everyone in the city of Green Bay.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Grant. Again.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're talking about reducing it down to 2 members, which it was also stated that there's currently 2 vacancies. So they have 7 active members, and there's times they're not meeting quorum. So when you're talking about quorum being a difference of one person, but you have two more members who can possibly show up, wouldn't it almost make it easier to meet quorum qualifications when you have 9 versus 7 and there's only a one spot difference? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like quorum is 4 and 5, but you have 7 and 9. So you have the difference of 2 extra people, the chance of them being available to show up. So again, I guess I'm just kind of trying to understand the goal. If there's members on there that the schedule is too busy, maybe it's a possibility of stepping down and opening that position to someone who can commit their time. I will offer an amendment motion to approve striking the 7, keeping it at 9, but allowing the alder to have voting privileges.
Okay, Alder Grant makes a motion to amend. Seconded by Alder Johnson. All in favor of that amendment will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. Entertain a motion.
Just one thing, Mayor.
Alder Johnson.
Yep. I just thank you, Alder Presley, for correcting. I had my memory was wrong. The mayor kind of verified it. I was under the presumption. My memory was that we had a couple of, or I think at least one protected class that was not protected under federal law, and I thought it was the commission that still heard that. But so I appreciate. I just want to acknowledge that correction, so that way the rest of council heard that as well. So thank you.
Where are we? No, not yet. Was there? Yeah. So motion to advance as amended. Made by Alder Eck, seconded by Alder Morgan. All in favor will say aye. Board vote has been requested.
You may vote.
Nope.
That passes 9-3. Motion to adjourn made by Alder Prophet, seconded by Alder Ritterbusch. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Have a great one.
Joey.
Recording stopped.